Chapter 10:14. Senior, don't be anxious. Let me explain slowly. Duo Lan took a few deep breaths, trying her best to make herself feel less afraid when facing Ning Fan. Then, a look of reminiscence flashed across her face. There's a sacred place in our tribe called the Sacred Mountain Tomb, which was formed by the sacred ancestors' will. Inside the sacred mountain is a secret realm, known as the Stone Path Secret Realm. There are 12 mausoleum veins in the secret realm, making it an excellent place for cultivation. It is also the item that cultivators of the sacred mountain have bitterly fought over in the past mausoleum wars. I believe Senior already knows about this. Other than the 12 mausoleum veins, the thing that attracts the most attention in the mausoleum is the stone seat. Previously, when Senior searched through this junior's memories, I presumed that my memories regarding the sacred mountain were very vague. This is where the sacred mountain's abilities lie, especially the coordinates of the stone seat. Without a special ancient method to read it, it is impossible to see it in this junior's memories. Ning Fan nodded his head. It was no wonder that he could not find the coordinates of the stone seat when he used the soul search technique previously. As expected, it was because of the sacred mountain again. The stone throne, its full name is the Sacred Ancient Stone Throne. It's located in the secret realm of the sacred mountain, and it's the place where the sacred ancestor sealed his belongings before his death. Each of the sacred ancient stone seats had relics of the sacred sages. Some of them were left behind, some were left behind by the sacred ancient stones. There are medicinal pills, divine arts, comprehension, and all kinds of strange things, but all of them are peerless treasures. So it turns out that the ancient sacred stone is where the relics of the saints are kept. Ning Fan was slightly surprised. Even the immortal emperors of the sacred mountain, who have studied the mausoleum for many years, do not dare to wander around inside. Once they get lost, it is said that the consequences are very terrible. I also heard from my father that only a few experts who get lost in the secret realm are lucky enough to walk back. Most of them, however, will have their consciousness taken away by the saint's will and become a walking corpse. They will wander the depths of the mausoleum forever until they die. There is no lack of immortal emperors among them. Even immortal emperors would become walking corpses if they were lost? Ning Fan was a little surprised. The Sacred Mountain Mausoleum was actually this dangerous. My father once said that those immortal emperors who were reduced to walking corpses were under the most powerful illusion technique of the sacred ancestor when he was still alive, the 10,000 decays. Speaking of the name of this illusion technique, Duo Lan's face suddenly became a little more spirited, a little more solemn, a little more reverent, and a little more national pride. 10,000 recitations, 1 decade. The strongest illusion technique of the sacred ancestor. It was the most powerful divine ability of all the despicable people. The Stone Path Secret Realm is the pinnacle of formations and illusions. It's filled with confusion, and the terrain changes rapidly. Without the coordinates, it's impossible to walk in there. As of now, the mighty beings of the sacred mountain have only confirmed 174 coordinates within the tomb, including the coordinates of the tomb's entrance, the 12 mausoleum veins, some ancient ruins, and the coordinates of the sacred ancient stone. No one knows how many holy ancient stone seats there are in the Stone Path secret domain, but so far, 126 holy ancient stone seats have been discovered. The first ancient holy stone contains a nameless ancient pill. The person who discovered it was a 6th tribulation immortal emperor. After consuming the pill, he immediately went into seclusion. In less than 100 years, he came out as a 7th tribulation immortal emperor. What kind of elixir was that? It actually allowed a celestial emperor's cultivation to increase by a small realm in just 100 years. The second ancient sacred stone seat contains an enlightenment that allowed an ancient 7th tribulation immortal emperor to reach the first level of one with the heavens. There was actually such a good thing. The third ancient sacred stone seat contains a mid-grade innate magical treasure. The fourth ancient sacred stone seat contains a 10th revolution pill. Unfortunately, it's just a healing pill. There was actually a legendary 10th revolution pill. It's a pity that the 5th ancient sacred stone seat has been robbed before. The 6th ancient sacred stone seat contains a trace of primordial chi. The 7th ancient sacred stone seat has also been robbed. The 8th ancient sacred stone seat actually contains part of the formation structure of the seal of 2 realms, the 9th, the 10th. Most cultivators had a photographic memory. Thus, Duo Lan was able to recite all the information about the 126 stone seats effortlessly. He did not make a single mistake. The more Ning Fan listened, the more excited he became about the ancient sacred stone seats. Duo Lan had the coordinates of 7 stone seats. If he could read the coordinates, he would be able to enter the tomb to search for treasures and find the 7 relics of the saints. However, when he remembered that there were quite a number of old monsters who were plotting against Duo Lan's coordinates, Ning Fan's excitement cooled down. Up until now, the people who coveted the 7 coordinates were the 3 flames, the fire spirit race, and the great emperors of the sacred mountain who had colluded with the 3 flames. This matter was too troublesome. If Ning Fan keeps Duo Lan's coordinates for himself, he would probably be targeted by countless people in the dark. The priority of this trip was to save Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. Before that, Ning Fan did not plan to cause any unnecessary trouble. Moreover, he did not have the qualifications to enter the tomb, and he did not have the ancient method to read the coordinates. Instead of coveting the relics of the saints, it would be better for him to complete the objective of this trip first. I heard that reading the coordinates of the stone seats requires some ancient methods. Is that true? Ning Fan asked. That's right. The coordinates of the stone seats are divided into time coordinates and space coordinates. Only the 3 Flames clans know how to read the space coordinates, while the ancient method to read the time coordinates is in the hands of the fire spirit race. There are also a few immortal emperors of the sacred mountain who know how to read the ancient method. It seems like just reading the coordinates is going to be very troublesome. Ning Fan shook his head. Time was rather tight for him to enter the sacred region this time. He did not have much energy to waste on the coordinates of the stone seats. However, if there are other experts who attack you in the future, I might not be able to protect you. Ning Fan said to Duo Lan helplessly. This Duo Lan was definitely troublesome. As long as he keeps Duo Lan by his side, there would certainly be a 3rd, 4th, or even more people who would come after him and get closer to him. The 3 Flames had already failed twice. If they come after him for the 3rd time, they would certainly target him and would not be careless anymore. It was highly likely that they would send out more immortal venerables from the ancient times or even immortal kings and immortal emperors. How would Ning Fan deal with them then? Could it be that he had to abandon this troublesome Duo Lan? Duo Lan's small face was a little pale. How could she not hear the hesitation in Ning Fan's words? She said bitterly, "If Senior thinks that Duo Lan is a hindrance, Duo Lan is willing to leave on my own. I won't give Senior any trouble." This was very interesting. Originally, Duo Lan could not wait to break free from Ning Fan's evil clutches. Now, she was somewhat reliant on Ning Fan's protection. Ning Fan shook his head. Duo Lan had witnessed him killing Pai Xiong with her own eyes. He did not trust her at all. Even though bringing Duo Lan along would bring him more trouble, he would not feel at ease letting her go. "I'm also worried about letting you go." "Forget it. You should still stay by my side." Duo Lan felt a little bitter. Senior is actually worried about letting me go. If I'm in his shoes, I probably won't feel at ease either. Forget it. It's good that I can rely on Senior's protection. At least it's safer than being alone. After all, I can't return to the sacred mountain unless I can represent Chu Lai's bloodline in the 3rd round of the Mausoleum Seizing competition and achieve an outstanding performance. I still want to rest for a while. You can leave now. Ning Fan ordered. Duo Lan walked out of the medicinal pool respectfully. Just as she was about to leave the pool completely, a ray of purplish-black light suddenly flew towards her. Duo Lan halted her footsteps and reached out her hand to catch it. It was a purplish-black feather that was condensed from the power of illusion technique. When I'm resting, I won't be able to divert my attention to protect you. You just need to take my feather of illusion technique and hide inside the belly of the stone dragon. With the sturdiness of the stone dragon's belly, you won't be in danger even if the 3rd hunt comes. Duo Lan's heart trembled slightly. Am I being cared for by someone? By the cold and selfish Ning Fan? Is it because of the coordinates of the stone seat, or is there another purpose? You don't need to be suspicious. The reason why I'm giving you a place to hide is because you are my soul-locking slave. Even though I don't like you, I won't allow my people to be killed so easily. Ning Fan's words carried a hint of dominance. Ning Fan's men could not be killed by others without knowing the reason. No one can. Duo Lan tightened her grip on Huan Yu's hand and thanked Ning Fan calmly. When she walked out of the medicinal pool, she could not help but feel a trace of warmth in her heart. Perhaps, Senior Ning is a good person? Suddenly, when she thought of her senior brother's death, Duo Lan felt a little gloomy. How could she have a good impression of a devil lord? A devil lord is a devil after all. After learning about the coordinates of the stone seat, the doubts in Ning Fan's mind were finally resolved. After resting in the medicinal pool for a few more days, he finally walked out of it. The stone dragon that he had subdued in the past was now hiding at the bottom of the grassland. As for Duo Lan, she had already used her earth escape technique to go underground and hide inside the belly of the stone dragon. There were still some people waiting for Ning Fan outside, and one of them was Xin Yu Chun. It was unknown if Xin Yu Chun was really stupid or just pretending to be. Usually, he did not do many things thoughtfully. However, when it came to serving Ning Fan, he did everything well and no one could find any flaws in his actions. Ning Fan found it a little hard to accept Xin Yu Chun's enthusiasm. When he noticed that there was an immortal venerate waiting for him in the Tower Wood tribe, he directly sent Xin Yu Chun back to the evil goat tribe to recuperate. This fellow had suffered quite serious injuries during the Fire Soul Rampage. What was he trying to do by loitering around here instead of recuperating? Since Ning Fan had ended his seclusion, the people of the Tower Wood tribe naturally treated him with great enthusiasm and held a banquet to welcome him. During the banquet, Venerate Si Jing, who had been waiting here for many days, also showed up. This person's tone was extremely polite. However, deep in his heart, he more or less disdained external cultivators. He just did not show it on his face. After all, Ning Fan was a distinguished guest that the great emperor of Tian capital wanted to invite. Ning Fan did not mind Si Jing's attitude. After 3 rounds of wine, Venerate Si Jing suddenly dismissed everyone. He took out a golden invitation and passed it to Ning Fan with a smile. This time, I came here for 2 reasons. One is to reward the Tower Wood and the other is to deliver this item on behalf of the great emperor of Tian capital. This is the invitation to the ancient Buddha meeting. It will be held 3 days before the minor competition in the Middle Province. Venerate D has said that if fellow Taoist Ning has the time, you might as well come to the ancient Buddha meeting for a chat. Ancient Buddha meeting? Ning Fan had heard about the great emperor of Tian capital and the ancient Buddha meeting. Therefore, he was a little surprised. The ancient Buddha conclave was a grand gathering of Buddhism and Taoism in the middle ground. It had extremely strict requirements for the participants and was known as the 3 Dan TS. Cultivators below the immortal venerable realm were not allowed to be invited. Those who were not members of the great desolate clan were not allowed to be invited. Those who were not masters of the Buddha Tao were not allowed to be invited. If one could not fulfill these 3 requirements, even if he was a cultivator of the sacred mountain, he would not be invited. Logically speaking, as an external cultivator, Ning Fan did not have the right to participate in the ancient Buddha meeting at all. He did not expect that he would actually be invited by someone. Moreover, he was even invited by the great emperor of Tian capital, who was known as the Stubborn Rock of the Middle Province. The reason why this person was called the Stubborn Rock was naturally because of his stubborn personality. This person discriminated against external cultivators. Due to his personality, he hated others who broke the rules the most. However, such a person actually broke the rules for an external cultivator and invited him to participate in the ancient Buddha meeting. What exactly is the purpose of the great emperor of Tian capital doing this? Ning Fan stroked the invitation in his hand and muttered to himself. Seeing that Ning Fan was still hesitant about participating in the ancient Buddha meeting, Si Jing immediately felt a little dissatisfied. There were countless old monsters in the great desolate clan who desired to participate in the ancient Buddha meeting, but they could not. This external cultivator in front of him had the honor of making the Venerate D make an exception, but he still hesitated. He really did not know what was good for him. Si Jing's heart was filled with dissatisfaction. Unfortunately, he was not a person who liked to talk too much. Thus, he did not argue with Ning Fan. However, he also did not want to stay in this place for a long time. Originally, he wanted to exchange some cultivation experiences with Ning Fan, the immortal venerate of the ancient times. Now, however, he was in a hurry to leave. If it wasn't because he still had some instructions from the great emperor of Tian capital, he would have already left. The Venerate D also asked me to warn fellow Taoist Ning that you have completely offended someone in the middle state by breaking through the stone flame volcano. If you come to the middle state, you must be careful of the cold arrows from the top of the building. The cold arrows from the top of the building are referring to Great Emperor Lu Tua, right? Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly gloomy. However, he did not say anything and just nodded his head. One more thing. The Venerate D asked me to warn fellow Taoist Ning that Meng Zhen's death will not be easily resolved. The three flames will certainly look into this matter. According to a reliable source, fellow Taoist Ning has already become a great enemy with the 11th bounty on the wanted list of the three flames. He was actually wanted by the three flames. Fortunately, it was difficult for the three flames to walk out of the ominous domain. If he was wanted by the 5 emperors of the middle state, it would be quite troublesome. From the looks of it, even without Duo Lan, the three flames would not let him go. However, would Ning Fan be afraid of trouble that he could not avoid? Thank you, fellow Taoist, for telling me about this. Ning Fan thanked Si Jing. You don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Great Emperor Tian Du. Si Jing's attitude became very indifferent. After exchanging a few more words with Ning Fan, he left. Is this person blaming me for underestimating the ancient Buddha assembly? After Si Jing left, Ning Fan shook his head helplessly. However, he did not take Si Jing's temper to heart. Si Jing was also a person with a true temperament. That was why he would show his emotions on his face. Unfortunately, he could not expect a devil cultivator like Ning Fan to be interested in a Buddha assembly that he could not coexist with, right? Moreover, Great Emperor Tian Du might have his own plans in this matter. Ning Fan could not help but think about it further. No one would believe that Great Emperor Tian Du did not have his own plans. Of course, putting everything aside, Ning Fan was actually a little interested in the ancient Buddha assembly. According to Ta Mu Ren's introduction, in a grand event like the ancient Buddha assembly in the middle state, each of the invited great experts would be able to taste the ancient Buddha Dao fruit, which could improve their cultivation base significantly. It was said that other than tasting the Dao fruit in the ancient Buddha assembly, there would also be a small-scale trading event for immortal venerables and above. I can use the things that I do not need to exchange for other people's treasures. Of course, Ning Fan would go to this ancient Buddha assembly. If he does not go, Great Emperor Tian Du would still use other methods to achieve his goal. Instead of that, he might as well find out what was going on in the ancient Buddha assembly. Since Great Emperor Tian Du had invited him openly, he would not have any evil intentions even if he had some ulterior motives. Otherwise, he might be plotting against him in the dark. Of course, in order to participate in the ancient Buddha assembly, he would first have to go to the middle state. There was still some time before the second round of the grand competition in the middle state. However, it was pointless for Ning Fan to stay in the Ta Mu clan. Thus, he might as well go to the middle state as soon as possible. In the grand competition in the middle state, Ning Fan still needed to represent the Ta Mu clan. However, he did not need the other participants to go with him. Unlike the first round, which focused on the overall results, from the second round onwards, individual results would be more important. The other members of the Ta Mu clan could only blame themselves for being too weak. Even if they go, it would be useless as they would be eliminated before the second round. Thus, it was better to stay in the Ta Mu clan and wait for Ning Fan's good news. A few more days passed. For the grand competition in the middle state this time, we won't be going with Lord Ning. When you arrive at the middle state, there will naturally be someone to receive you. These fire crystals are a small token of our Ta Mu clan. Please accept them, Lord. The clan leader of the Ta Mu clan, Tag Li took out a heavy storage pouch and handed it to Ning Fan. Ning Fan scanned the pouch with his spirit sense and immediately sighed. All the fire crystals that the Tamu clan had obtained as rewards this time were actually all inside. Not only that, there were also millions of medicine soul stones, various types of pills, medicinal herbs, and 3 bottles of medicine marrow. The 3 bottles of medicine marrow that was close to 10,000 years old contained no less than 100 drops. These things. Ning Fan was a little hesitant. He did not immediately accept these things. After all, in the eyes of a cultivator with the level of immortal venerables like him, the Tamu clan was too small and too poor. He was too embarrassed to plunder their land. These are the token of our Tamu clan. Lord Ning, please don't reject it. We, the Tamu clan, have gotten rid of the fate of being at the bottom for 10,000 years and obtained the honor of being the first clan in the southern border. We are already very satisfied. These are all thanks to Lord Ning. Besides, if it wasn't for Lord Ning, I would have already died in the Fire Soul Riot. If we don't repay Lord Ning's kindness to our Tamu clan and the southern border, we won't be able to feel at ease. Tag Li sounded extremely solemn. Ning Fan remained silent for a while and accepted the storage pouch. Then, he waved goodbye to each of the Tamu clan's people. After leaving the Tamu clan this time, he probably would not return again. Master, can I go to the middle state with you? Xin Yu Chun suddenly appeared from the crowd of the Tamu clan. Ning Fan was a little speechless. Aren't you a member of the Xieyang clan? What are you trying to do by staying in the Tamu clan all the time? Unlike the time when his position in the Xieyang clan was in a precarious situation, the current Xin Yu Chun had received unanimous praise from the stubborn elders of the clan. They were very supportive of him befriending Ning Fan. After all, Ning Fan was the benefactor of the entire southern border, including the Xieyang clan. I have a lot of things to do. I don't have the time to take care of you. Ning Fan shook his head and refused. No. I don't need Master to take care of me. Besides, the reason why I'm going to the middle state is not to pester you. I have an appointment with someone. Of course, when the middle state grand competition begins, I will certainly go and cheer for you. Something else? Ning Fan was surprised. He thought that Xin Yu Chun wanted to pester him. The journey to the middle state is too far. With my cultivation base, it will take me at least 1.5 years to get there. That's why I want Master to bring me along. If that's the case, it's not impossible for me to bring you along. However, when we arrive at the middle state, you must be careful when you act alone. Don't forget that the ominous realm was plotted against by someone. Ning Fan reminded him. Xin Yu Chun was being targeted by someone. Staying in the southern border was naturally not as safe as going out. Don't worry, Master. When we arrive at the middle state, there will naturally be an old man who sells water vats to protect me. He and I are very familiar with each other. An old man who sells water vats? It doesn't sound very reliable. Perhaps it's some old monster who sells water vats in the marketplace in order to gain enlightenment. However, since Xin Yu Chun had his own plans, Ning Fan did not need to worry about him blindly. Even though he did not plan to accept him as a disciple, he still had some gratitude towards Xin Yu Chun for breaking through to the next realm because of his roar. By the way, how did Master know that I was being plotted against by someone in the ominous realm? Could it be that you heard it from the people of my tribe? Or perhaps you knew everything about the heavens and the earth? Yes, that must be it. Master is really a divine being. Xin Yu Chun's admiration for Ning Fan grew even stronger. Ning Fan was a little speechless. He no longer wanted to talk nonsense with Xin Yu Chun. I'm finished. I forgot. The old man who sells water vats told me not to tell anyone about him. Xin Yu Chun beat his chest and stamped his feet in frustration. Why is my mouth so loose? Forget it. Anyway, I'm telling it to my master. So what if I let it slip? Ning Fan did not pay attention to Xin Yu Chun's noise. He brought Xin Yu Chun and went underground. After going underground for an unknown period of time, they suddenly bumped into a massive object that was as hard as iron in the darkness. It was the stone dragon that was hiding underground. With a leap, Ning Fan carried Xin Yu Chun and flew into the abdomen of the stone dragon. As for the stone dragon, it was writhing in pain, as if it wanted to chase Ning Fan out of its stomach. It would not allow its master's murderer to hide in its stomach and control it. "Be quiet." Ning Fan gave an order. The complicated illusion technique that was planted in the stone dragon's sea of consciousness began to operate, causing the stone dragon to lose his consciousness again. What a difficult fellow to tame. From the southern border to the middle province, one would need to cross more than 20 grasslands. Moreover, the closer one is to the middle province, the stronger the forbidden power of the sky would be. If Ning Fan's cultivation base was not sealed, he could still fly all the way to the middle province. However, with his current cultivation base, he could not ignore the forbidden power of the grasslands near the middle province. When low-grade cultivators came to a place where they couldn't fly, they would hire spirit beast carriages and use them to travel to the central state. Ning Fan had the earth escape technique of the 100 Lili stone dragon. Thus, he naturally did not need to go through so much trouble. However, with the speed of the stone dragon's earth escape, it would probably take them a few days to reach the middle province. During these few days, Xin Yu Chun was sleeping soundly in the stone dragon's stomach while Duo Lan was frowning beside Ning Fan. The closer they got to the middle province, the more troubled they became. As for Ning Fan, he absorbed a large amount of energy from the fire crystals during the journey. To fire cultivators, the fire crystals in the bodies of the fire spirit clan were precious cultivation treasures. Ning Fan had already obtained quite a number of fire crystals during the martial test. Adding the fire crystals that Tom Mu gave him, he had nearly 4,000 true crossing fire crystals, 500 void abandonment fire crystals and 90 thought fragmenting fire crystals. Fire cultivators could absorb the fire elemental power within the fire crystals to increase the grade of their flames. However, to Ning Fan, whose devil flame had reached the 12th adoration devil flame, absorbing the true crossing fire crystals did not have much of an effect. Usually, he would need to absorb more than 100 fire crystals to improve his devil flame slightly. After absorbing more than 4,000 true crossing fire crystals, the grade of his devil flame had only become much more stable. It did not improve much. With the grade of Ning Fan's devil flame, the absorption speed of the void abandonment fire crystals was also extremely fast. After absorbing the 500 void abandonment fire crystals, Ning Fan was surprised to find out that a wisp of dark green flame was actually born in his 12th adoration devil flame. The number of this kind of dark green flame was not much. As it was submerged in his devil flame, it was almost invisible. However, Ning Fan did not dare to underestimate this flame. The changes of the Tao laws contained in this flame were extremely complicated, far beyond Ning Fan's understanding. Vaguely, Ning Fan felt that this dark green flame was somewhat familiar. Suddenly, he realized something. Isn't this the flame from the Seal of the Two Realms? The dark green flame in the Seal of the Two Realms was left behind by the saint. The Fire Spirit clan was a clan that was born after the saint's flame was shattered. The two of them were originally related. Now that Ning Fan had absorbed the fire crystals in the bodies of the Fire Spirit clan, the dark green flame that was born was naturally extremely similar to the flame in the Seal of the Two Realms. The amount of this flame was too little. It was so little that cultivators with weak naked eyes could barely see it. However, Ning Fan did not dare to ignore the destructive power of this flame. If he uses the same amount of devil flame as him to fight against this dark green flame, the result would be his devil flame being devoured by it without a doubt. Obviously, the destructive power of this dark green flame was much stronger than Ning Fan's devil flame. After refining the void renunciation fire crystals, Ning Fan began to refine the thought fragment fire crystals. Unlike the void renunciation fire crystals, each time he devours a piece of the thought fragment fire crystals, it would add a wisp of dark green flame to his devil flame. After refining all of the fire crystals, the destructive power of Ning Fan's devil flame had increased by nearly 5%. As for the dark green flame in his devil flame, it had also increased to the size of an infant's fist. It was no longer just one or two wisps of flames. Unfortunately, this amount of dark green flame still can't be used in actual combat. If I could have more. Ning Fan muttered to himself for a moment. Then he began to stabilize the grade of the flame. Another 2 days passed. The stone dragon that was 100 li suddenly crashed into some kind of barrier. Its momentum was stopped. The impact of the collision caused a rumbling earthquake, startling countless birds, cows, and sheep on the ground. Ning Fan became slightly vigilant. He spread his spirit sense and his expression relaxed. It was not the pursuit of the tri-flames. Instead, he had arrived at the boundary of the middle state. How audacious of you! How dare you crash into the grand formation of the middle state? At the border of the middle state, a cultivator with a large beard let out a cold harumph and slightly waved his hand. Immediately, several strong cultivators with powerful auras appeared behind him. The weakest among them was at the life-immortal realm. Go underground and capture the person who crashed into the grand formation. I don't care if he's dead or alive. Chapter 10:15. Those strong men answered and were about to dive into the ground to capture them. Unfortunately, before they could move, Ning Fan's group had already reached the surface while the stone dragon was still lurking in the ground. The strong men immediately became alert. Without a doubt, Ning Fan's group was the madman who crashed into the formation at the border of the middle state. Each of the strong men moved with a swooshing sound. In just an instant, they occupied all the positions and surrounded the three of them. Their movements were in sync with each other's. Ning Fan felt a little helpless. He did not expect to get himself into some trouble even before he entered the middle state. Speaking of which, did that stone dragon purposely crash into the grand formation at the border? Didn't it know how to avoid it? Most of the strong men in front of him were only at the life-immortal realm. Duo Lan frowned slightly and released a trace of shedding void chi. The strong men immediately became alert. Experts who were shedding void chi were not considered weak in any grassland. Obviously, this group of people had a powerful background. But so what? They were just a group of foreigners after all. How could they be compared to the cultivators of the middle state who had a noble status? The strong men revealed arrogant expressions. That was the superiority of the people of the middle state. When they faced the other cultivators of the grassland, they often showed regional discrimination. Ning Fan was slightly speechless. Cultivators from other regions would be discriminated against by the people of the middle state. The cultivators of the Holy Mountain would also discriminate against ordinary people of the middle state. This was probably a characteristic of the middle state. Which grassland are the three of you cultivators from? How dare you to crash into the formation at the border? Don't you know that this is against the commandment of the middle state? If you surrender obediently and accept your punishment, we can still give you a lighter punishment. If you dare to resist, don't blame us for torturing you. The strong men's expressions were fierce and threatening. We are cultivators of the southern border. We are here to participate in the grand competition of the middle state. It is indeed our fault for crashing into the grand formation at the border. According to the commandment of the middle state, a small crime can be atoned with gold and silver. We are willing to offer gold and silver to make up for our crime. Xin Yuchun skillfully took out a storage pouch filled with gold and silver. It was not his first time coming to the middle state. He naturally knew what these people wanted. The expressions of the strong men immediately softened. When they saw that the storage pouch contained more than 1 million taels of gold and silver. When they looked at Xin Yuchun's eyes, there was a smile that said, "You are very sensible." Ning Fan was slightly speechless. He could not believe that they could solve the dispute in front of him with useless things like gold and silver. Despicable people love gold and silver. Just this bit of atonement silver? It's only enough to pardon one person. If you want to pardon 3 people, it's not enough. The bearded commander behind the strong men said coldly. Xin Yuchun silently cursed the other party for being greedy. He then took out a storage bag filled with gold and silver and handed it to the bearded commander. Another 1 million taels of gold and silver. Greed flashed in the bearded commander's eyes, but he still kept a straight face and deliberately said in a cold voice, Still not enough. Xin Yu-chun gritted his teeth and handed over another 1,000,000 taels of silver. The bearded commander finally revealed a satisfied smile and patted Xin Yu-chun's shoulder. I didn't expect younger brother to come from the southern border to actually have such a high net worth, hehe. The matter of colliding with the array formation at the border is cleared. You can enter the central plains now. All right, younger brother, do you need a spirit beast carriage? I have a batch of high-grade spirit beast carriages here. They were left behind by some cultivators who broke the law in front of us to atone for their crimes. How about I sell one to you cheaply? He had already regarded Xin Yu-chun, who squandered money like dirt, as the leader of the three. Thank you for your kind offer, but we plan to buy a spirit beast carriage after we pass the border. Xin Yu-chun had an expression that said, I have been cheated many times, don't lie to me. That's really a pity. I can't earn another sum of money from this foolish brat. The bearded commander waved his hand. After ordering the strong men to let them pass, Ning Fan's group finally entered the central plains smoothly. Along the way, Xin Yu-chun's face was full of dejection. He had just entered the central plains and he had already lost 3,000,000 taels of gold and silver. He felt a great pain in his heart. Ning Fan naturally would not feel heartache. To him, gold and silver were just stones on the roadside. If he could use gold and silver to solve a problem, then it was not a problem. He could not understand why the despicable people valued gold and silver so much. Duo Lan, on the other hand, felt a little bitter. These soldiers at the border, they actually did not recognize her identity. She was the guardian of the holy mountain, the saintess of Chu Lai's lineage. If these soldiers at the border knew her identity, they would not dare to question her even if she did not hand over the gold and silver. That's right. She had left the center of power of Chu Lai's lineage for too long. It had been so long that the cultivators of the holy mountain did not put her in their eyes. It had been so long that these soldiers at the border actually did not recognize the saintess. Not far from the border, there was a small city at the border. The three of them arrived at the city on foot. It was not that they did not want to fly, but the restrictive force of the middle state was too strong. Those who were not ancient cultivators would not be able to fly. Other than that, the underground of the middle state was filled with formations, making it extremely difficult to enter the middle state through the earth. Thus, Ning Fan could only leave the stone dragon outside the middle state. The small city in front of them was not more than 10 li in size. There were quite a number of cultivators going in and out of the city. Most of the travelers would buy spirit beast carriages here as a form of transportation. I've seen so many nomadic lives of the people of the Southern Territory. It's really a little unexpected to see a city on the grassland, Ning Fan said with surprise. The grassland of the Middle State is a special case in the Dabi grassland. In terms of the vastness of the territory, the Middle State is ranked first. The people here no longer live in tribes or live as nomads. Instead, they build cities and live in them. The cities are connected by official roads. Within the Middle State, there are tens of thousands of small cities and hundreds of middle cities. There is only one big city called Lioli City. It is the Buddhist capital of the Middle State. It is the holy land in the eyes of countless Buddhist sects and saints. It is also the place where the grand competitions of the Middle State are held. Duo Lan explained respectfully. Of course, she did it through telepathy. She did not want Xin Yu-chun to hear her tone of speaking in such a respectful manner. Lioli City, huh? I wonder if Nuan Air is waiting for me in Lioli City or somewhere else. Ning Fan felt a little helpless. The entire Middle State was filled with an extremely strong restrictive force of the Middle State. Those below the level of immortal venerables could not fly in the sky. Therefore, there were not many scenes of people flying across the sky in the Middle State. Most of the time, they would travel in spirit beast carriages. In the Middle State, there was also a restrictive force that limited the range of the spirit sense of cultivators. Ning Fan tried to activate his rain technique. However, he realized that his rain technique, which had always been successful, could not cover too far. It could only cover a distance of 10,000 li at most. Of course, the reason why it was so severely restricted was because his cultivation base was limited. However, according to Ning Fan's estimation, even if his cultivation base was not restricted, he would not be able to cover the entire middle state with his spirit sense. Unfortunately, Zhang Yu and Ning Fan had agreed to meet in the middle state, but they did not leave the address. As a result, Ning Fan actually had no idea where he should go to find Zhang Yu and O Yangmun. Fortunately, there was a faint connection between the child relic and the mother relic. Ning Fan looked towards the north. He could vaguely sense that O Yangmun and Zhang Yu were in that general direction. Is Liuli City in the north of the middle state? Ning Fan asked through telepathy. No. Liuli City is located in the extreme west of the middle state. Why do you ask this question, Senior? Duo Lan replied through telepathy. I need to go to the north of the middle state to settle some matters. In other words, aren't we going to Liuli City directly? Xin Yu-chun noticed the conversation between Ning Fan and Duo Lan through telepathy. He automatically imagined that the two of them were exchanging glances with each other. His limited intelligence told him that Ning Fan and Duo Lan were probably talking to each other through telepathy. They were probably saying some extremely mushy words of love that they did not want him to hear. I'm really muddle-headed. It's so troublesome for me to stand here. I'm completely affecting the progress of the relationship between master and mistress. I've arrived at the middle state. I have an appointment with that old man and it's not on the same route as you. Can I leave first? Xin Yu-chun winked at Ning Fan with an expression that said, Master, I can only help you to this point. Since it's not on the same route, you can go by yourself. Ning Fan nodded and let Xin Yu-chun leave. Xin Yu-chun eagerly entered the city and bought a spiritual beast carriage before leaving. Ning Fan and Duo Lan were alone again. There was no need for them to talk through telepathy. Senior's disciple seems to have misunderstood something. Duo Lan noticed Xin Yu-chun winking at her. With her intelligence, she vaguely guessed that Xin Yu-chun must have misunderstood something. How could she have that kind of relationship with Senior Ning? She's just a soul-locking slave. Xin Yu-chun isn't my disciple. You don't have to care about him. He's just letting his imagination run wild. Let's get down to business. I'm going to the north of the middle state. I don't know where exactly I'm going. However, if I get close to this place, I should be able to confirm it. After I buy a spiritual beast carriage, I'll head north first. Ning Fan said indifferently. Once again, they talked about the itinerary. You don't know the destination, but you want to go to the north of the middle state. Duo Lan felt strange. However, she had learned her lesson and did not ask too many questions. He only responded with a respectful yes. There were quite a number of shops that sold spiritual beast carriages in the city. However, most of them were low-grade spiritual beast carriages. The spiritual beasts that pulled the carriages were only at the life-immortal realm or crossing true realm. Naturally, their speed would not be too fast. After searching for a long time, Ning Fan could only find a shop that sold spiritual beast carriages above the void-shedding realm. The name of the shop was Thunder Sound Pavilion. There was a blurred formation outside the pavilion. If one's cultivation level was not high enough, they would not even be able to get close to the pavilion. They could only be stopped outside. Ning Fan, of course, was not afraid of this formation. He calmly brought Duo Lan inside. Every step he took was strangely on the veins of the formation. After taking 3 steps, there was a thunderous sound coming from the formation. However, when Ning Fan casually pointed at it, the thunderous sound disappeared. After taking 7 steps, the thunderous sound resounded again. It actually carried a vast and mighty aura. However, it was still extinguished by Ning Fan with a single step. After taking 9 steps, the thunderous sound was about to resound again. However, Ning Fan had already brought Duo Lan through the layers of formations and entered the Thunder Sound Pavilion. It was just a mere 9 steps. In the end, the thunderous sound in the formation did not condense. It was still suppressed by him. This is a little terrifying. Duo Lan was secretly shocked. Isn't Senior's attainment in formations too high? This is the Thunder Sound secret restriction of the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Even though this pavilion was just one of the branches of the Thunder Sound lineage and there was only a corner of the formation outside the pavilion, It was still extremely difficult for an ancient immortal venerable to completely suppress the thunderous sound from entering the formation. However, Ning Fan was able to do it easily. In Duo Lan's heart, she could not help but feel a little more respectful towards Ning Fan. When Ning Fan and Duo Lan entered the pavilion, the group of maids who were not prepared at all were shocked. As for the shopkeeper who was taking a nap in the pavilion, he also opened his eyes at this moment. His eyes were filled with astonishment. This was an early thought fragmentation realm expert. However, he was taking up the position of the shopkeeper of the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. If this person is not an old monster who lives in the streets, it means that the foundation of this Thunder Sound Pavilion is too strong. It is enough to make the thought fragmentation realm the shopkeeper. Your attainment in formations is really high. You can actually ignore the formation and enter the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Forgive me for my poor eyesight, but I don't seem to have seen you in the Sacred Mountain before. Could it be that you are a cultivator from the Debay tribe? The shopkeeper cupped his fists politely and asked. Inwardly, he was secretly guessing Ning Fan's identity. With such a terrifying technique, he could directly suppress the Thunder Sound's secret restriction and enter the pavilion. It is impossible for him to be a nobody. Why does he look so unfamiliar? Suddenly, his gaze fell upon Duo Lan and he was surprised again. Isn't this the Saintess Chu Lai? The declining saintess of a declining lineage. The shopkeeper withdrew his gaze. The disdain in his eyes was still caught by Duo Lan. Duo Lan felt a little bitter, but she still sent a telepathic message to Ning Fan. The Thunder Sound lineage is the #1 branch in the Sacred Mountain. There are 4 immortal emperors in the clan. Their strength far surpasses my Chu Lai's lineage. This Thunder Sound Pavilion is one of the businesses of the Thunder Sound lineage. When we come here to buy a spiritual beast carriage, we must be polite. We must not offend the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. The Thunder Sound lineage is the #1 branch in the Sacred Mountain. With 4 immortal emperors in the clan, no wonder this Thunder Sound Pavilion can make a thought fragmentation realm cultivator the shopkeeper. It seems that the spiritual beast carriages they are selling are not for those low-grade cultivators. I'm not a cultivator from the Debay tribe. I'm a cultivator from the outside world. This time, I'm representing the Towerwood clan of the southern border to participate in the competition in the Middle State. Ning Fan answered honestly. He did not feel that his identity as an external cultivator was inferior to others. The shopkeeper immediately frowned. His attitude towards Ning Fan was no longer as polite as it was in the beginning. So what if you can suppress the thunder sound in the secret restriction? You are just an external cultivator. You are even worse than the declining Chu Lai. Are you here to buy a spiritual beast carriage? Our Thunder Sound Pavilion is different from the shops in the outside world. We don't accept gold or silver. We only accept items of equivalent value. Do you know this rule? The shopkeeper asked impatiently. This is the first time I heard that the Great Humble Tribe has a shop that allows people to barter. Ning Fan's temperament was not to be angered by the shopkeeper's attitude. If an external cultivator is here to buy a spiritual beast carriage, the requirements are even harsher. The items used to exchange for a spiritual beast carriage must be pills of equivalent value. We don't want anything else. Hee, although my tribe looks down on you external cultivators, we still value your pills very much. This is the price list. Take a look yourself. If you like a spiritual beast carriage, use pills of equivalent value to exchange for it. Also, there are some pills that our pavilion doesn't accept. The types of pills that we don't accept are recorded in this scroll. Take a look yourself. The shopkeeper casually threw 2 scrolls to Ning Fan. Then he ignored Ning Fan and continued to pretend to sleep. The first scroll. It recorded the detailed information of all the spiritual beast carriages in the Thunder Sound Pavilion. At the same time, it marked the price. The spiritual beast carriage drawn on the scroll was not static. It was moving. The wheels would roll forward from time to time. The spirit beast that pulled the carriage would occasionally roar towards the sky. The sound could be vaguely heard from the scroll. Ning Fan roughly scanned the prices of these spiritual beast carriages. According to the materials used for the carriages and the grade of the spirit beast, the prices of the spiritual beast carriages were quite different. However, there was one fixed point. Void-shedding rank spiritual beast carriages could only be traded with 9 transformations silver pills. The prices ranged from 1 silver pill to 20 silver pills. If other people came to the Thunder Sound Pavilion to buy a spiritual beast carriage, they could use other items to barter. However, Eastern Sky cultivators who came here had to exchange pills. Naturally, this was the method that the Thunder Sound Pavilion used to obtain the Eastern Heaven pills. Since ancient times, Ning Fan was not the only external cultivator who had purchased a spiritual beast carriage from the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Countless Eastern Heaven pills had already fallen into the hands of the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Since the Thunder Sound Pavilion had restricted the types of pills, it meant that they were not after the pills themselves but the pill recipes behind the pills. Ning Fan looked at the second scroll. It was marked with the pills that the Thunder Sound Pavilion refused to trade. According to Ning Fan's guess, these pills that refused to trade were most likely already obtained by the Thunder Sound Pavilion. After studying them thoroughly, they obtained the pill recipes, so they did not need them anymore. After eliminating the types of pills on the scroll, Ning Fan's storage pouch still had a lot of pills that met the trading rules of the Thunder Sound Pavilion and could be exchanged for the spiritual beast carriages. However, there was one thing that Ning Fan was quite concerned about on the second scroll. There were 13 types of 9 transformation silver pills that were newly added. The ink was still very fresh, not more than 3 months old. Apart from these 4 types of pills, the other pills' handwriting was very old. In other words, within these 3 months, there were external cultivators who used 9 transformation silver pills to exchange for the 13 spiritual beast carriages of the Thunder Sound Pavilion. Apart from him, were there other Eastern Sky cultivators who entered this place? Or perhaps, the person who exchanged the spiritual beast carriages was not an external cultivator and just happened to have Eastern Sky pills and traded them to the Thunder Sound Pavilion. However, it was not impossible for it to be an external cultivator. First of all, Ouyang Nuan and Zhang Yu's group must have come to the middle state. However, even if Old Wu was included, they would not need 13 spiritual beast carriages. On that day, Ning Fan was not the only one who entered the extreme Dan sacred region. Most of the people who entered were searching for medicinal herbs in the outer region. However, there might be others who took the risk to enter the inner region. Your Excellency, you have been staring at the pill scrolls. Could it be that you are short of money and can't take out any pills that are not rejected to trade? The shopkeeper frowned. Of course, I can take out some pills. However, I don't know if your pavilion has any thought fragmentation rank spiritual beast carriages for sale. If you do, I am willing to exchange them with 9 transformations golden pills of equivalent value. Ning Fan smiled. 9 transformations golden pills. You want to use 9 transformations golden pills to exchange for thought fragmentation rank spiritual beast carriages? The shopkeeper was slightly shocked and extremely tempted. When a pill reached the 9 transformations golden pill rank, even the ancient experts would not be able to look down on it. His thought fragmentation rank was naturally moved. Unfortunately, after a while, the shopkeeper could only smile bitterly. Our pavilion has a rule that spiritual beast carriages of thought fragmentation rank and above cannot be sold to external cultivators. This old man does not dare to violate this rule. If it wasn't because of this rule, those external cultivators who spent a lot of money in the past wouldn't only be able to buy space-shedding spiritual beast carriages. Ning Fan's eyes slightly narrowed when he heard the shopkeeper's words. Indeed, there were many external cultivators who came to buy spiritual beast carriages to enter the middle state. Forget it. If that's the case, I won't make things difficult for you. I just want to buy a space-shedding spiritual beast carriage. In the end, Ning Fan spent 29 transformation silver pills to buy the best space-shedding spiritual beast carriage and left this small town at the border. After Ning Fan and his group left, the shopkeeper did not say anything and sent a report back to his clan. The report only contained a short paragraph. The 14th batch of external cultivators entered the middle state. There was only one person. His cultivation base was limited by the ancient times and his body could not sense lightning. This person didn't come for the immemorial lightning cauldron, but we still have to be careful. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Ning Fan, who had already boarded the spiritual beast carriage to the north, suddenly opened his eyes and withdrew the rain scents that he left in the Thunder Sound Pavilion. The report that the shopkeeper sent back to his clan was still seen by Ning Fan. I am the 14th batch of external cultivators who entered the middle state. Who are the first 13 batches? Nguyen Air and the others must have entered the middle state together. They are considered as the same batch. Other than that, who are the other external cultivators? Flying Thunder Immortal King, Battle Rhino Immortal King, Mahasek's disciple, Qin Xiansha. The people of the dark race and the thought-shattering old monsters who were famous in the eastern heaven. I heard that the Supreme Pill Sacred Region will be opened for the last time this time. There must be quite a number of famous old monsters who entered the place. It's not strange that some of them came straight for the middle state. However, the shopkeeper of the Thunder Sound Pavilion deliberately mentioned that there was no lightning in his body. What does that mean? Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly solemn. Somehow, he recalled the day when Great Emperor Chonghe used a mysterious Yin lightning to scheme against him. If he had taken the Yin lightning away because of his greed that day, perhaps the cultivators of the Thunder Sound Pavilion would have found out about the lightning in his body today. I can't rule out this possibility. If I'm not mistaken, the cunning and far-sighted Great Emperor Chonghe has actually planned this until today. Also, what is the immemorial lightning cauldron that was mentioned in the report? It seems like the Thunder Sound Pavilion is guarding against the external cultivators who have designs on the immemorial lightning cauldron. Have you heard of the immemorial lightning cauldron? Ning Fan sat outside the spirit beast carriage and asked Duo Lan, who was in the carriage, through the curtains while driving the carriage. The immemorial lightning cauldron is one of the treasured cauldrons that the sacred ancestor used when he was still alive. He had a total of 9 cauldrons in his life. The immemorial lightning cauldron is the first among all the cauldrons. It was refined by the sacred ancestor using the lightning of the eastern mountain. He also took all the spiritual materials from the sea area of the 4 sects and fused them into the cauldron. Duo Lan explained. What is the eastern mountain lightning? Which 4 sects are the sea area of the 4 sects? Ning Fan asked in surprise. He did not understand a single word that she said. I also don't know. These words are all recorded in the scriptures. However, I heard from my father that the materials used by the sacred ancestor to refine the cauldron were all taken from his hometown. My father said that it's a world that is completely different from the world we live in. The lightning of the eastern mountain and the sea area of the 4 sects are all things from that world. Duo Lan said with a yearning expression. She did not understand the concepts of the true world and the illusory dream world, but Ning Fan already had some understanding of them. Judging from this immemorial lightning cauldron was a magic treasure that the sacred ancestor refined using the materials of the true world, the medicinal cauldron used by the sacred ancestor. According to Duo Lan's words, the herb gatherer saint had a total of 9 cauldrons in his life. The immemorial lightning cauldron was ranked first. Other than that, there were 8 other cauldrons. The sect master of the Pill sect had once obtained the Great Wilderness Cauldron in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. That Great Wilderness Cauldron was so powerful. I wonder if it was one of the 9 cauldrons of the sacred ancestor. No matter whether it was or not, it was indeed a pity that the Great Wilderness Cauldron was destroyed. Speaking of which, this Supreme Pill Sacred Region was really full of treasures. After the sacred ancestor died, his will turned into a sacred mountain to preserve his belongings. His flames turned into the Fire Spirit clan to guard the seal of 2 realms. The medicinal cauldron he left behind was also a rare treasure. The corpse of the medicine slave he left behind was the target of Zhang Yu's possession this time. Speaking of which, I still don't know the name of the herb gatherer saint. After I came to Great Bay, I have read through many ancient books. However, I only saw titles such as Extreme Pill Old Man and Medicine Ancestor. They seem to be fabricated and unreliable. Do you know the name of your sacred ancestor? Ning Fan asked casually. He did not expect Duo Lan to know the name. However, Duo Lan's delicate body shuddered as if she really knew the name. It was as if she recalled the scene when her father brought her into the stone path secret realm with a stern face and told her the coordinates of the 7 stone seats. She could still hear the strange, illusory voice of the 10,000 corpses chanting scriptures in front of the stone seats. Medicine Saint of the South? Medicine Saint of the South? Yes. It's the Medicine Saint of the South. Nanzhan Gu chanted the Tao spirit to perish. 1 decade into desolation, 10,000 chants into antiquity, a sword came from the west, samsara split, forever lost and converted to the Medicine Saint of the South. Duo Lan muttered to herself. Suddenly, tears welled up in her eyes. She thought of her father. Even that father of hers rarely gave her any warmth and care. Moreover, they rarely met each other. At that time, she could not understand the guilt and helplessness in her father's eyes. Now she understood. What are you chanting? What is it? Ning Fan was inwardly shocked. Just as Duo Lan opened her mouth, he felt a slight pain in his sea of consciousness. Then, layers of illusions appeared in his eyes. Even though the illusions were dispelled with just a thought, they still gave him a hint of fear. He was very sure. Duo Lan, who was in the carriage, did not use any illusory technique on him. She did not even deliberately circulate her magic power. She just chanted a paragraph of words. However, this paragraph of words actually gave him a hint of confusion, giving him a feeling that he could not extricate himself from it. He could not resist it. These few sentences were definitely not simple. How could ordinary words bewitch a Fu-Li cultivator like this? I also don't know what these words are. I only know that all the corpses in the Stone Dao secret realm chanted the same words. They chanted numbly and emotionlessly. It's very scary. Very scary. My father said that this is a forbidden place that we can't touch. Duo Lan suddenly felt drowsy. She directly leaned against the carriage and fell asleep. It was as if just uttering that sentence had exhausted all of her mental strength, making her feel extremely exhausted. 10,000 recitations, 1 decade into desolation. Ning Fan's expression became slightly solemn. Duo Lan slept for an entire day before she woke up. In just a day's time, Ning Fan had already driven a spiritual beast carriage. They traveled towards the north for an immeasurable distance. Duo Lan rubbed her sleepy eyes, feeling a little apologetic. She actually fell asleep just like that. She should be helping Ning Fan to watch the road. After all, he was not familiar with the Middle State and there were many rules that he did not know much about. One should know that the cultivators of the Middle State built their cities and resided there. Therefore, their possessiveness towards their territories was not ordinary. Putting aside those small cities, the middle-sized cities had their own territories. They did not allow cultivators to get close to them casually. If Ning Fan continues to travel to the north and bumps into the territories of some city lords, it would be troublesome. She should be helping Senior to watch the road. How could she fall asleep? Besides, Senior is the one driving the carriage. No matter what, I, a soul-locking slave, should be the one driving the carriage. Speaking of which, why is it so noisy outside? It's as if there are many carriages and horses chasing after their carriage. You're awake? Ning Fan's tone did not seem to be in a good mood. Could it be that he is blaming me for falling asleep? Duo Lan immediately became a little worried. She wanted to explain the reason why she fell asleep. It was because she had misread those words. However, she suddenly heard faint curses coming from behind, interrupting her words. How dare you? You've trespassed on the territory of our 1,000-army city. Quickly stop the carriage and accept our punishment. Stop the carriage. Our Golden Thunder City has been chasing after you for a day and a night. If you continue to run, don't blame us for being merciless. Shoot him with arrows. Quick. Stop him with the formation flags. Damn it. We can't stop him. This man is so strong. A rain of arrows flew towards the carriage. However, all of them were burned to ashes by Ning Fan's devil flames. Formation flags flew into the sky and sprinkled down formation light, trying to slightly stop the carriage from moving forward. However, they were extinguished by Ning Fan's finger. We can't stop him. We can't stop him. There were at least 12 cultivators from the middle city chasing after the carriage. However, none of them could stop the carriage from moving forward. Ning Fan was in a very bad mood. He was driving the carriage perfectly fine, but he was scolded and chased for no reason. Moreover, the number of people chasing after him was like a rolling snowball. It was really annoying. If it wasn't for the fact that this place was the middle state, which was the territory of the despicable people, he would have taught the people behind him a lesson even if he didn't kill them. Senior, what's going on with these people? Duo Lan was somewhat speechless. She lifted the curtain and walked out of the carriage. It seemed like Ning Fan's bad mood was not because of her. I don't know. It seems like they are here to pick a fight. Ning Fan said impatiently. Senior, you misunderstood. It's not them who are looking for trouble. It's you who trespassed into their territory and violated a taboo. Duo Lan wanted to explain, but she had no way to explain, so she could only smile bitterly. You are familiar with the middle state. You should know which remote place is sparsely populated. Show me the way. Duo Lan's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that Senior is impatient and wants to find a desolate place to kill these small fries? She seems to know the truth. Senior, actually, it's our fault first. It's not good to kill people. Duo Lan said cautiously. We are in the wrong first? What did we do wrong? Ning Fan was surprised. We trespassed into their territory. I have been walking on the official road between the cities and did not step into anyone's territory. Ning Fan said with a frown. Even the official road belongs to the middle city's territory. If you want to cross the border, you have to pay a certain amount of gold and silver. Oh, so that's why. I don't have any gold and silver. Ning Fan shook his head disapprovingly. It seemed like there were people who wanted to stop him and ask for gold and silver along the way, but they were all ignored by him. I do. Duo Lan smiled bitterly. Then should we pay now? It's too late to pay now. Duo Lan continued to smile bitterly. Then let's find a remote place. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light, causing Duo Lan to hurriedly wave her hand in fright. Don't. Senior, please don't kill people. It's not good to kill people. Duo Lan clenched her teeth. These people were her compatriots. If they were killed by Ning Fan just because they wanted to collect toll fees, it would be too unjust. Although the behavior of these middle city cultivators was indeed a little overbearing and deserved a lesson, I will deal with this matter. Duo Lan calmed herself down and asked Ning Fan to stop the carriage. Then, she returned to her usual cold attitude. As soon as the carriage stopped, the carriages behind them caught up and surrounded the carriage. A few middle city cultivators who were the loudest were preparing to teach Ning Fan a lesson. However, when they suddenly met Ning Fan's cold eyes, they were so frightened that they could not speak a word. What kind of murderous gaze was that? They seemed to have kicked an iron plate. Unfortunately, they did not notice that Ning Fan, who was driving the carriage, was so terrifying. Otherwise, they would only be fools to chase after them all the way here. Do you have something to say to me? Ning Fan said indifferently. The few middle city cultivators immediately retreated. They were panicking. It was hard to get off the tiger. Fortunately, Duo Lan appeared at this moment. I am Holy Maiden Chu Lai. Why are you chasing after my carriage? Could it be that you want to attack me? Hiss. The middle city cultivators' faces turned pale with fright. The carriage driver in front of them was already very scary. They did not expect that the other woman in the carriage was even scarier. Holy Maiden Chu Lai. This woman was actually the Holy Maiden of Chu Lai's lineage. She was an existence that even the 5 emperors of the Middle State would not dare to offend. They had really kicked an iron plate. Each of the pursuers was sweating profusely. A few of the older cultivators even recognized Duo Lan's appearance. After confirming Duo Lan's identity, they immediately begged for mercy. We dare not. How would we dare to attack the Holy Maiden? Please forgive us, Holy Maiden. What are you waiting for? Duo Lan shouted. The group of pursuers who were scared out of their wits immediately scattered like birds and beasts. The trouble was solved so easily. Duo Lan heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Ning Fan did not give them the chance to kill them. Ning Fan looked at Duo Lan with a puzzled expression. I didn't expect you to be such a kind person, of course not. It's Senior's kindness that allowed them to live. Duo Lan put on a fake smile. Inwardly, she thought that her lying skills were getting better and better. She could even flatter Ning Fan against her will. Suddenly, she realized that she had unknowingly let go of her reservations after spending so much time with Ning Fan. That was why she could flatter Ning Fan so shamelessly. If she has her guard up, she should be careful with her words and actions. She would not even dare to flatter Ning Fan. Unknowingly, she was no longer as afraid of him as she was in the beginning. Ning Fan did not pry into the changes in Duo Lan's mind. He was happy to have less trouble. If it wasn't necessary, he would also be too lazy to kill them. He sighed with emotion. I didn't expect your identity as the Holy Maiden to be so useful. If it's me who is an external cultivator or a cultivator from the southern border like Xin Yu-chun, I'm sure those people won't retreat so easily even if they are afraid of you, of course. In front of Senior, my identity is naturally nothing. However, in the Middle State, even the 5 emperors of the Middle State are not willing to offend the dignified Holy Maiden Chu Lai, let alone the cultivators of the Middle City. However, in the Holy Mountain, the identity of the Holy Maiden is nothing. Duo Lan said the first half of her sentence proudly, but the second half sounded bitter. Currently, she was already nothing in the Holy Mountain. Oh? Even the 5 emperors of the Middle State don't dare to offend you? Ning Fan was surprised. It seemed like he had underestimated this woman from the beginning to the end. Of course, they don't dare to offend me openly. However, I don't know about them secretly. After all, they are also proud and arrogant immortal emperors. If they are forced into a corner, who knows what they will do? Speaking of which, if Senior has any troubles in the Middle State, why don't you let me settle them for you? It's my honor to be able to help Senior a little. If I don't help you, you will kill the innocent. Duo Lan thought to herself. If you can help me with many things, it can indeed save me a lot of trouble. Thank you very much. Ning Fan nodded. If it could reduce some troubles, Ning Fan would certainly agree. Thus, the spiritual beast carriage continued to the north. Occasionally, it would crash into the territories of other middle cities. However, Duo Lan would reveal her identity and scare them away. Thus, there was no conflict. Another day passed and Duo Lan realized that something was wrong. The direction Ning Fan was traveling in was obviously the 100 Flowers Peak of the 5 Fingers Peak in the Middle State. If we go any further, it will be the territory of the 100 Flowers Grand Emperor. She has yet to recover from her serious injuries. Her territory has already been sealed and no one is allowed to pass through. Duo Lan explained. 100 Flowers Grand Emperor? Ning Fan's expression turned slightly solemn. Just now, there was clearly an extremely strong but also extremely weak spirit sense that scanned the carriage. Could it be the owner of this place, the 100 Flowers Grand Emperor? The people I am looking for are here. With your identity, you should be able to enter this place, right? Ning Fan asked. Yes, I can. If Senior must enter this place, you can enter with me. However, this matter might be a little troublesome. Forget it. It's not a big deal anyway. Duo Lan was a little hesitant. However, she still bit her lips and nodded in the end. The carriage continued to advance for a while and was stopped. If they continued further, it would be the boundary of the 100 Flowers Peak. According to the order of the 100 Flowers Grand Emperor, the area within 1,000 li radius of the 100 Flowers Peak is listed as a forbidden area. Ordinary people are not allowed to enter. A group of strong men blocked the road. I am Chu Lai, Duo Lan. I have something to do here. Duo Lan walked out of the carriage and said indifferently. Immediately, the strong men in the area sucked in a cold breath. A moment later, they burst into laughter. Could. Since Saintess Duo Lan is here, of course, you can enter the 100 Flowers Peak. We have been waiting for you for a long time. However, Saintess, you better think it through. It's easy to come to my 100 Flowers Peak, but it won't be so easy to leave. I have thought it through. Why are you still not giving way? Duo Lan shouted. the strong men immediately gave way to a path that led straight to the 100 Flowers Peak. The 100 Flowers Peak was one of the 5 Fingers Peaks in the Middle State. It was also where the 100 Flowers Grand Emperor's abode was located. Could this be considered as revisiting an old place? When she was young, she had come to the 100 Flowers Peak. At that time, she followed her father to bully others. That year, she had made countless enemies. Her overbearing father. Chapter 10:16. After a simple inspection, the carriage was allowed to enter the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. Behind the carriage, 10 strong men riding strange beasts followed closely behind, as if they were monitoring them. They did not intend to let Ning Fan and his group move freely in the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. Within 1,000 li of the 100 Flowers Peak, cultivators could be seen patrolling every few li. The security was so strict that it made people believe that the martial law of the 100 Flowers Peak was not a joke. Ning Fan did not plan to wander around in this place. Instead, he drove the carriage along the path and went straight to the main peak of the 100 Flowers Peak. If his senses were not wrong, Yangwan and Zhang Yu should be on the main peak. Among the 5 emperors of the Middle State, the 100 Flowers Emperor was the immortal emperor who disliked getting involved in mundane affairs the most. Because of that, she was severely injured by several immortal Emperor Realm Corpse devils when she entered the 10th grade Fierce domain to search for medicine 1,000 years ago. She had been in seclusion to recuperate until now, causing the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak to be in a state of martial law all year round. Cultivators from the outside world were not allowed to enter. Without Duo Lan, Ning Fan would probably have to go through a lot of trouble to enter the heavily guarded 100 Flowers Peak. Ning Fan had heard some rumors about the 100 Flowers Emperor. At this moment, when he recalled the message left by Zhang Yu and the others, he could not help but have a guess. Zhang Yu seems to be bringing Yangwan to save an old friend. With her identity as an immortal emperor, it is impossible for a friend to be mediocre. Perhaps Zhang Yu's old friend is this 100 Flowers Emperor. If that is true, the 100 Flowers Peak is no longer an enemy but a friend. However, the attitude of the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak was a little too aggressive. Along the way, Ning Fan met many cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak. All of them looked at him with undisguised hostility. It was not that they were hostile towards Ning Fan's identity as an external cultivator. Up until now, his identity had not been exposed. The reason why they looked at him with hostility was actually because they vented their anger on him. The real enemy of the people of the 100 Flowers Peak was Duo Lan. As for Ning Fan, he was regarded as Duo Lan's coachman. Naturally, he would not be treated nicely. This coachman is really strong. My spirit sense was repelled before it could even get within 1 zhang of his. Humph. So what if he is strong? He still became a lackey of Duo Lan. I've exhausted my mental power and used a secret technique to probe the coachman's cultivation, but I can't see through him at all. This person is at least a shedding void cultivator, maybe even higher. So what? It was not worth mentioning. Speaking of which, this bitch only brought a void shedding servant with her, yet she dared to come to my 100 Flowers Peak. She's quite audacious. I might have to teach her a lesson. Some of the 100 Flowers sect cultivators they met along the way were all discussing this. There were even some who were eager to get into action with impatient expressions on their faces. They wanted to attack Doran, but they had many misgivings and were overcautious. In the end, they gritted their teeth and gave up. Duo Lan was very nervous. It was fine if she was being scolded and scolded by others, but Ning Fan was the devil lord among all devils. She must not get angry when she was treated as a coachman and scolded as a lackey. She did not dare to order Ning Fan around like a coachman, so she simply sat outside the carriage with Ning Fan, accompanying him to drive the carriage. On the surface, she still had to maintain a cold and aloof attitude like the owner of the carriage, but in her heart, she had to carefully observe Ning Fan's expression. Seeing Ning Fan's frown getting deeper and deeper, his heart sank. Could it be that Senior Ning couldn't hold back his anger anymore and is really going to fight against these cultivators of the 100 Flowers sect? Apprehension, Apprehension, apprehension. This was the territory of an immortal emperor. If they acted rashly, they would suffer greatly. Do you have a grudge against the 100 Flowers sect? Ning Fan suddenly asked using telepathy. I guess you can say that there are some grudges between us. My father, the previous Chu Lai emperor, had once barged into the 100 Flowers sect and bathed this place in blood. Duo Lan was surprised and answered carefully. Bathed in blood? Ning Fan was slightly stunned. He could imagine the monstrous massacre behind this simple sentence. The smell of blood assaulted his nostrils. The previous Chu Lai bathed the 100 Flowers sect in blood. No wonder these cultivators of the 100 Flowers sect hated Duo Lan so much. With this layer of karma, I'm afraid it will be quite risky for you to enter the 100 Flowers sect. If I knew about this earlier, I would have left you outside. Ning Fan said with a frown. Senior, are you worried about me? I'm really flattered by your favor. Duo Lan's uneasy mood inexplicably became better. A smile appeared at the corner of her eyes. Actually, I also don't want to come to this place. However, without me, it won't be easy for Senior to enter the 100 Flowers sect during the martial law period. Senior, don't worry. My safety is not a problem. I'm the saintess of Chu Lai's bloodline. Even if these people hate me, they won't dare to take my life in public. After all, killing a saintess of the Holy Mountain is a serious crime. These people will at most make things difficult for me. Ever since her father's death, as an orphan girl, she had suffered a lot of hardships and grievances. She accepted it calmly. Her heart was already indestructible. If I can help Senior, it's not a big deal for me to suffer some difficulties. For some unknown reason, her fear towards Ning Fan was getting lesser and lesser. She even secretly hoped to help Ning Fan. Ning Fan remained silent for a long time before speaking. Even if you don't help me, I'm confident that I can enter this place. Speaking of which, I have neither gratitude nor hatred towards you. There's no need for you to do this for me. With his experience, how could he not feel that Duo Lan's feelings towards him had changed a little after being together for a few days? She was no longer afraid of him. There was even a sense of closeness between them. Although there was still a distance from liking him, there were already budding feelings. However, this kind of feeling was actually just a kind of misunderstanding. There was neither gratitude nor hatred. There were no more concise words to describe the relationship between him and Duo Lan. He killed Duo Lan's senior brother, Pai Xiong. He forced Duo Lan to become his soul-locking slave. This was the truth. Just because he had saved Doran's life twice and showed him some kindness, just because he had occasionally shown Doran some kindness, Doran had been overwhelmed by the favor and had developed a favorable impression of him. Then this favorable impression was wrong. Neither gratitude nor hatred. The brightness in Duo Lan's eyes gradually dimmed. She gently bit her lips and her pretty face became a little pale. How could she forget that Ning Fan was her enemy? Even though she did not have a good impression of her senior brother, Pai Xiong was Chu Lai's disciple after all. However, he died in the hands of Senior Ning. Senior Ning was Chu Lai's enemy. She could not have a good impression of him. Moreover, Senior Ning was an external cultivator. Moreover, he was a madman who kidnapped the saintess of the Holy Mountain. Only a person with a weak heart would have a good impression of their enemy and develop a good impression of him and rely on him. Was she a little too reliant on Ning Fan's protection? Was she still her? Was she still the declining saintess who had come this far alone? How could she have a good impression of the murderer who kidnapped her? Senior's lecture is right. This is wrong. It's wrong. Actually, even if I don't want to help Senior, I also want to pick a time to visit the 100 Flowers Peak again. The last time I came here was with my father. It has been many years since then. Senior, you don't have to feel that you owe me anything. If I get into trouble in the 100 Flowers Peak because of me, you don't have to worry either. I will naturally find ways to deal with the troubles that the 100 Flowers Peak creates. I will never cause any trouble for Senior. Duo Lan's voice became even more respectful. It was so respectful that it sounded distant. It was as if she had forcefully extinguished the trace of good impression she had towards Ning Fan. However, at this moment, Her state of mind and cultivation had obviously improved. Her Tao heart became firmer. However, the originally harmonious atmosphere of the trip was finally filled with silence because of this. Ning Fan knew that Duo Lan had understood what he meant. She would no longer be close to him. From the bottom of her heart, she had already forcefully corrected their identities. The identity of the master and the soul-locking slave. The identity of an external cultivator and a lowly cultivator. The identity of an enemy and an enemy. Other than that, there was nothing else. There was no kindness and enmity. Indeed, there was no kindness and enmity. Purposely making the soul-locking slave alienate me. Ning Fan sighed inwardly. Am I doing a good deed every day? I don't want this woman to fall into the wrong path. I don't want her to lose her heart and truly become a slave just because of some small favors. That's why Ning Fan purposely kept a distance between the two of them. He had already appreciated this woman's good intention of helping him enter the 100 Flowers Peak. Thus, he returned the favor by giving her some pointers. Even though these pointers were a little harsh and ungrateful, it really made Duo Lan see her heart clearly. Her state of mind had improved. It could be considered as him repaying her kindness. They did not speak again along the way. There were many stone peaks in the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. However, most of them were short. Only the main peak was unusually tall and sharp. Looking from afar, it looked like an immortal pointing his finger at the sky with an imposing aura. On each of the stone peaks, there were countless exotic flowers and rare herbs. It really matched the name of the 100 Flowers Peak. Many of them were unique species that Ning Fan had never seen before. With a thought from Ning Fan's spirit sense, there was a light drizzle in the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. The drizzle in the late spring was already normal. No one noticed the peculiarity of the rain. However, they did not know that Ning Fan's spirit sense had already followed the drizzle and entered each of the stone peaks silently. It even entered the cave residences of the experts on the stone peaks. There was only one main peak in the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. It was where the 100 Flowers Great Emperor's cave residences were located. The main peak was covered with mountain mist. The mountain mist was very strange. It gave Ning Fan a feeling that it was like the heavenly Tao. The rain sense could not penetrate it at all. Once it enters the mist, it would lose control and gradually get lost. In the end, it would collapse and scatter in the mist. This was probably the technique of the 100 Flowers Great Emperor. Ning Fan did not forcefully peek into the main peak. After all, once this matter is discovered, it would be an extremely rude provocation to the 100 Flowers Great Emperor who was guarding the main peak. Each of the 7 secondary peaks was guarded by immortal kings and immortal venerables. All of them were the elites among the disciples of the 100 Flowers Great Emperor. Ning Fan also did not probe too much. He just took a quick glance at them and then withdrew his spirit sense. No one noticed it. As the spiritual beast carriage approached the main peak, the fragrance of flowers in the air became stronger. When they arrived at the foot of the main peak, a few young men suddenly walked down from the mountain path and blocked Ning Fan's path. Each of these young men was handsome and their cultivation base was around the rogue immortal realm. There were strange wings growing on their backs. When they flapped their wings, they could actually fly up to a height of several hundred zhang above the ground for a short period of time. It was quite impressive. You guys can leave now. The venerable sovereign has ordered us to bring Holy Maiden Chu Lai up the mountain. The few young men with the wings said expressionlessly. Instead of saying that they were expressionless, it would be better to say that their faces were stiff and they could not show any expression at all. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. He sensed the extremely well-concealed corpse qi in the bodies of these young men and immediately understood what was going on. These are a few corpse devils. The strong men who followed Ning Fan seemed to be extremely afraid of these young men. After bowing respectfully to them, they hurriedly left. Ning Fan and Duo Lan got off the spiritual beast carriage and handed it to the guards at the foot of the mountain to park. The few young men then told Duo Lan and Ning Fan to follow them and walk towards the mountain path. Ning Fan's eyes flashed and he slowly followed them. These young men were the human cauldrons of the 100 Flowers Great Emperor when they were alive. The 100 Flowers Great Emperor has a preference for handsome and intelligent young men. She often plucked them for dual cultivation. Every year, countless young men would be toyed to death by her. Among them, the most beautiful ones would be turned into corpse devils by the 100 Flowers' great emperor using a secret technique. She hopes to preserve their physical bodies forever and pamper them as they used to be. The young men who were turned into corpse devils would retain some of their spiritual intelligence. Their status in the 100 Flowers Peak is extraordinary. Even the immortal venerables and immortal kings on the secondary peaks would not dare to provoke them. It's all because they are favored by the 100 Flowers' great emperor. Senior's appearance can be considered as 1 in 100 handsome men. It's fine if you don't meet the 100 Flowers' great emperor. But if you meet the 100 Flowers' great emperor, we can't rule out the possibility that the 100 Flowers' great emperor will fall for you. Since these young men are assigned by the 100 Flowers' great emperor to lead us up the mountain, I'm afraid we have to meet the master of this place first. Senior, you have to be careful. Duo Lan was extremely respectful. She chose her words carefully and transmitted her voice to remind Ning Fan. Be careful that the 100 Flowers' great emperor will fall for you. Be careful that she will pluck you for dual cultivation. Ning Fan's face was filled with black lines. He looked at Duo Lan and saw that she was extremely serious. She did not look like she was joking at all. Is there really a risk of being plucked by the 100 Flowers' great emperor? He came here to look for Zhang Yu and Ouyang Wan. According to Ning Fan's speculation, the two of them probably came to the main peak to save the 100 Flowers' great emperor. If that's the case, he should also be considered as a guest of the 100 Flowers Peak. However, it seems like he cannot rule out other possibilities and the risks involved in this matter. If there's really no other way, I'll go up the mountain alone to meet the 100 Flowers' great emperor. Senior, you can stay at the foot of the mountain. To the cultivators of the 100 Flowers' great emperor, you'll just be my servant. Even if you don't go up the mountain, they won't mind. Duo Lan transmitted her voice again. I appreciate your kindness. However, the person I'm looking for is on this main peak. I still have to go up the mountain. Ning Fan answered. If that's the case, I won't say anything more. If anyone tries to make things difficult for me on the way up, Senior can just stand aside quietly. You don't have to worry about my safety, all right. Even though he knew about it, he did not say whether he would help her or not. Instead, he looked very calm. Duo Lan's heart, which she thought was indestructible, actually felt a little bitter. What was she hoping for? Was she hoping that Senior Ning would stand behind her domineeringly and protect her unwaveringly? It's impossible. This is impossible. Didn't Senior Ning give me some advice to draw a clear line between us? Wasn't it to cut off my wishful thinking? She should recognize her identity and the reality. It's impossible for her and Senior Ning to get into trouble and become enemies with the 100 Flowers Peak for the sake of a soul-locking slave like her. There was still no conversation along the way. Those young corpse devils remained silent. There was no longer any conversation between Duo Lan and Ning Fan. After walking along the mountain path for 2 hours, the few young corpse devils suddenly gave an order to Ning Fan and Duo Lan to wait for a while. They were not allowed to leave without permission. After that, all of them spread their wings and flew towards the top of the mountain. Soon, they disappeared from sight. Ning Fan had no choice but to wait on the mountainside for a while. However, a hint of vigilance arose in his heart. He was keenly aware that the terrain of the mountain had changed slightly after the few youths with flesh wings left. The change was almost undetectable. Even some formation masters who studied the general trend of the world all year round would have a hard time noticing it. However, it could not escape Ning Fan's eyes and ears, who had cultivated the secret of the word force. Time passed by slowly. The mountain mist that was originally lingering on the main peak suddenly became thicker. The atmosphere began to feel a little strange. Gradually, the density of the mist exceeded the eyesight of a cultivator. Things that were more than 10 steps away began to become a little blurry. Everything in front of them was white. They could not see the mountain path clearly, and they could not tell where they came from. Ning Fan frowned slightly. If he was not mistaken, the mountain mist becoming thicker was indeed done by someone on purpose. Senior, be careful. This is the bewitching formation of the 100 Flowers Peak. Someone is controlling this formation to attack us. Duo Lan was slightly nervous. The bewitching formation was the protective formation of the main peak of the 100 Flowers Peak. Without the permission of the 100 Flowers Emperor, it would not be activated easily. Could it be that the 100 Flowers Emperor gave the order to use this formation to make her suffer? Sure enough, with the grudge between her and the 100 Flowers Peak, it was impossible for her to ascend the mountain safely. Duo Lan was not a powerless person. After all, she was a void-shedding almighty expert. Now that she knew that someone was controlling the formation to attack her, she immediately displayed her ability. The power of her medicine soul protected her entire body. It seemed like she was using some kind of medicine soul secret technique. Duo Lan's long hair was originally tied with the tendon of the flood dragon. At this moment, the tendon of the flood dragon suddenly untied itself and danced 3 feet above Duo Lan's head. It was actually a defensive magic treasure. As soon as the treasure rose into the sky, wind blew around Duo Lan's body. Her long hair that was untied was as red as flames. It danced in the wind, making her look extremely beautiful. The dragon tendon of the Void Flame 100ly Void Dragon? Huh? I didn't expect that you actually have this item and even refined it into a protective treasure. The Void Dragon is good at bewitching people. Naturally, it has the ability to restrain illusory formations. It's reasonable for you to use this treasure to resist the bewitching formation. Unfortunately, your cultivation base is still not strong enough. This item is useless in your hands. An old man's disdainful voice came from the depths of the mist. Surprisingly, he had the aura force of a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivator. It was actually a mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivator who was controlling the bewitching formation of the main peak to attack Duo Lan. I'll only know if it's useful or not after I try it. Duo Lan activated her medicine soul power. Her medicine soul miraculously resonated with the tendon of the flood dragon. Obviously, this was a special magic treasure that relied on her medicine soul to activate. The flood dragon tendon trembled. Suddenly, a large patch of white mist swept out, forcing the surrounding mist to retreat 20 zhang away. Insignificant skill. The old man in the depths of the mist sneered disdainfully. All of a sudden, he let out a loud shout. Suddenly, a giant shadow emerged from the mist. The giant shadow was extremely illusory. It was a giant snake formed by the mist. It was high up in the sky. It was none other than the condensation of the Tao Elephant's power. Impressively, it was the thought fragmentation realm old man who had revealed his Tao Elephant. This Tao Elephant's name was Soaring Snake Riding the Mist. It had been fused with the old man's Tao sense. 4 thought fragmentation realm cultivators, not only could they use their Tao sense in a battle, they could also use their Tao Elephant to enhance their divine abilities. The Tao Elephant of Soaring Snake Riding the Mist could be ranked 64th in the Earth grade. Its effect was to greatly enhance the power of illusory techniques and illusory formations. As the Tao Elephant appeared, the power of the mist formation immediately increased. The mist that had been pushed back by the white mist once again engulfed Duo Lan. Duo Lan was shocked. She tried to activate the Void Dragon tendon again to fight against the mist. However, the old man in the dark did not give her the chance. He displayed his divine ability and took away the Flood Dragon tendon treasure. As a result, Duo Lan lost her support. She was caught off guard and the mist suddenly invaded her body. She cursed inwardly. She wanted to expel the mist from her body, but it was too late. As soon as the mist entered her body, it went straight to Duo Lan's head along with her blood. She felt a sharp pain as it tore open Duo Lan's sea of consciousness and invaded her body. All of a sudden, Duo Lan's expression became absent-minded and confused. Illusions appeared in front of her eyes as she sank into the illusory formation. Lan, you must take good care of these 7 coordinates. When your cultivation level is high enough, you will use the secret treasures of the 7 stone statues to restore the glory of my Chu Lai. Don't forget, don't forget. Oh, that was what her father said to her before he died. In a trance, Duo Lan saw her father's weak smile and his eyes filled with guilt. He gently patted her head as her primordial spirit was burned to ashes bit by bit. However, she felt a trace of relief. Father, don't leave Lan. Lan? Or doesn't want to restore the glory of Chu Lai. Or just wants to be with Father. I don't need a saint lady who has lost her power as my Tao companion. The marriage between my spirit sect and your Chu Lai lineage is nullified from now on. Oh, it was the illusion of her being annulled in front of everyone. Spirit sect's saint's son, you think you are so great? You don't know that if it wasn't for the lifeline of Chu Lai, Chu Lai, wouldn't want to marry you either. However, the humiliation on the Saint Mountain that day is unforgettable and engraved in my heart. Because from that day onwards, I was no longer a high and mighty saint lady. My pride began to be trampled on by others. More and more people wanted to trample on me. Your mother is a slut and so are you. Oh, it was the saint ladies from the other branches who mocked her. That day, the other saint ladies who were soaking in the mother-child pool ridiculed and humiliated her. She could be humiliated, but her mother couldn't. As a result, she became impulsive and made the first move. As a result, the other saint ladies took the opportunity to besiege her and severely injure her. They even destroyed her saint lady tattoo. In the end, she, the victim, was punished by the Saint Mountain. It was really unfair. Lan, I'm sorry. I can't accompany you as you grow up. Oh, it was the voice of her mother when she self-ignited her primordial spirit. It was very blurry and indistinct. At that time, she must have been very young. She was so young that she couldn't even remember her mother's voice and smile. However, her mother's voice remained in her memory and in her bones. It was unforgettable. My mother, what kind of person is she? I have never seen my mother before. I really want to see her once. I have never seen my mother before. I have never received Father's love. I have no master, no senior brothers, no friends. All the love and concern are fake. Only the humiliation is real. Only those schemes are real. Only those people's greed for the coordinates of the stone seat is real. So tired, so tired. Don't I want to revive Chu Lai's lineage? I don't want to struggle anymore. I want to die together with my father and my mother whom I have never seen before, be free together. I don't want to be anyone's soul-chaining slave anymore. I don't want to be mocked by anyone anymore. I don't want to struggle anymore. There were more and more illusions in front of her. Her sea of consciousness kept hurting and it was about to collapse. However, Duo Lan couldn't sense the collapse of her sea of consciousness. She had been bewitched by the illusions and couldn't stop them. There was numbness, pain, exhaustion, and abandonment in her heart. She let the fog collapse her sea of consciousness. She didn't want to stop it and she couldn't stop it. Be gentle. Destroy half of her sea of consciousness and leave a crack in her Tao heart. This is enough to teach this woman a lesson. If you really kill her, it will be hard to explain to the holy mountain. Another old monster's voice suddenly sounded from the depths of the fog. It was the voice of a middle-aged man. The old man snorted coldly. When he was about to reduce the power of the fog formation, his eyes suddenly trembled. Collapsing noises suddenly rang out from within the mist. The formation was showing signs of instability. Impossible! Who is breaking the bewitching formation? It's that coachman. How could he do that? This is a formation set up by a venerable sovereign. Even though we are the ones controlling it, not everyone can break it directly. This man, in the depths of the fog, exclamations could be heard from all directions. Obviously, there was more than one attacker hiding in the dark. Duo Lan was confused and in pain. She was so upset that she could barely breathe. Suddenly, a warm feeling spread to her body from her palm, causing her sea of consciousness to rumble like thunder. After a shock, her sea of consciousness regained its clarity. Only then did she realize that her sea of consciousness was injured and there were 2 lines of tears on her face. You're crying? Ning Fan frowned. It was him who woke Duo Lan up. Thank you for saving me, senior. Duo Lan wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. She didn't mention anything about her tears. She just bit her lips slightly, causing blood to flow out. She forced herself to calm down. It's just convenient. Ning Fan frowned. He casually pulled Duo Lan's hand and took a strange step forward. This step seemed slow, but it was clearly extremely fast. There was even a footprint of golden flames on the ground where his foot landed, burning fiercely. The momentum of the formation in this place was disrupted because of that step. The sound of the formation collapsing began to resound. Duo Lan had just fallen into the illusory formation. She was still in a daze. When she was pulled by Ning Fan, only then did she realize that her ears were burning. Why am I being held by Senior? I'm just a soul-locking slave. Bang! Ning Fan took another step forward. Each of his footprints made of golden flames was left on the ground. The fog in this place continued to collapse and disperse in all directions. Even the Tao image of the soaring serpent riding the fog also disappeared along with the collapse of the formation. The change in the situation caused the entire 100 Flowers Peak to tremble. Cries of alarm rang out from all directions. The birds fled in all directions and flew into the sky. There were even countless cultivators who were cultivating in seclusion at the top of the mountain who walked out of their caves, feeling indescribably shocked. What happened? Was the heart maze formation broken? Did some immortal emperor attack the 100 Flowers Peak? The clear sky appeared above Ning Fan's head once again. What did he do? He actually broke the formation of the heart maze grand formation? What kind of footwork is this? These golden flame footprints look a little familiar. I feel like I've heard of it somewhere before. The technique of the Eastern Heaven Ancestral Emperor. It's the secret technique of the Ancestral Emperor of External Cultivation. I've read about it in an ancient book before. No, he's not a coachman. He's an external cultivator. He's an external cultivator who knows the Eastern Heaven Ancestral Emperor technique. One after another, figures with powerful chi emerged from the other side of the mountain path. They were none other than the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak who sneakily attacked Duo Lan. All of them wore astonished expressions. Duo Lan, on the other hand, realized what Senior Ning had done. He actually broke the mountain defense formation that was set up by an immortal emperor head-on with his restricted cultivation base. Senior Ning's attainments in formations have actually reached such a high level. Ning Fan suddenly loosened his grip. Duo Lan felt a chill in her palm. She did not know why, but she felt a little disappointed. You're an external cultivator. Among the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak, an old monk with a long beard asked with a rather gloomy expression. He was the one who activated the Tao elephant just now. However, he did not expect Ning Fan to break the illusory formation that was strengthened by his Tao elephant's power so easily. Judging from Ning Fan's cultivation base, it doesn't seem to be very high. He should be suppressed by the punishment ring. That's right. I'm an external cultivator. Ning Fan said calmly. He would not feel inferior just because he was an external cultivator. The cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak were instantly filled with disdain. If Ning Fan was Duo Lan's coachman, the cultivators would more or less pay attention to him even though they hated him. After all, the coachman of the Saintess was also a cultivator of the Holy Mountain. He was considered as the guardian of the Holy Mountain. Thus, he was not to be underestimated. However, if Ning Fan was just an external cultivator, the usual racial discrimination of the despicable people would be unavoidable. You're just an external cultivator. Who allowed you to enter the 100 Flowers Peak? And who allowed you to interfere in the grudge between us and Saintess Chu Lai? A middle-aged cultivator sneered. His cultivation base was at the mid-thought fragmentation realm. Ning Fan's frown deepened. He did not want to become enemies with the despicable people, especially with the immortal Emperor realm forces of the Middle Region. However, his principles could not be changed. Duo Lan was his servant. He could treat her coldly and mistreat her. However, he could not allow others to harm her. I came to the 100 Flowers Peak to look for someone. Saintess Chu Lai is leading the way for me. Of course, I can't just ignore her troubles. Ning Fan said calmly. Is that so? It seems like you've decided to stick your nose into other people's business. Very well. Let me see what other means you have other than your attainments in the Tao of formations. How could you be so arrogant to stick your nose into my 100 Flowers Peaks business? The long-bearded old monk said coldly. He took a huge step forward and displayed his divine ability. White mist immediately spread behind him. Within the white mist, the shadow of a giant serpent slowly emerged. As soon as the giant serpent appeared, it immediately opened its bloody mouth and tried to bite Ning Fan's head. Ning Fan's eyes turned slightly cold. The long-bearded old monk in front of him actually used the Tao image to attack him. The attack of the Tao image is truly sinister. Ordinary thought-breaking realm cultivators would not use their Tao image to attack even if they used the power of the Tao image. The battle of the Tao image was extremely dangerous. To a true immortal realm cultivator, once their Tao image is damaged, they would either suffer a drop in their cultivation realm or die from the collapse of their Tao. Moreover, the Tao image could not easily hurt others unless the opponent used the same Tao image to receive the attack. Otherwise, the Tao image did not have the ability to directly hurt others. Before the long-bearded old monk displayed his technique, he first used words to stop Ning Fan from using that strange movement technique. Then he used the Tao image divine ability. If Ning Fan was afraid and did not receive the attack with the power of the Tao image, it would be considered as him admitting that he did not have the right to interfere in this place. He could either retreat or receive the attack with the Tao image. He did not give Ning Fan a third choice. Ning Fan recognized the Tao image of the soaring serpent riding the mist. Obviously, this long-bearded old monk was the cultivator who controlled the formation earlier. Did he use such a ruthless method because he was worried that I could easily break the formation? Did he really want to force me to use the Tao image to decide the outcome of the battle? If he was lucky, his cultivation base would be destroyed. If he was unlucky, his Tao would collapse and he would die. This long-bearded old monk really has a good plan. Ning Fan smiled. The reason why he chose to retreat and seek peace after entering the Great Inferno realm was just to avoid trouble. However, it did not mean that he was afraid of trouble. If he was afraid of trouble, he would not have forcefully broken the volcano divine ability and Great Emperor Tudodo's innate fire spirit. He even dared to offend Great Emperor Tudo. Why would he be afraid of a mere mid-thought fragmentation realm cultivator? Get lost! Ning Fan suddenly shouted coldly. A wave of oppressive but powerful Tao image aura force immediately spread out from his body. The invisible force directly caused the giant serpent Tao image to shriek miserably and retreat. Its eyes were filled with fear and it actually began to tremble, which was rare for it. It was as if it could feel the suppression from a Tao image of a higher level from Ning Fan's body. How is this possible? The long-bearded old monk was overwhelmed with shock. After the initial shock, his embarrassment turned into anger. What he was most proud of was his Tao image cultivation base. A Tao image of the 64th rank of the Earth grade was already considered one of the best among the thought fragmentation realm cultivators. Moreover, it was extremely rare for an Earth grade Tao image cultivator to attain minor accomplishment. If they were fighting at the same level, he wouldn't dare say that he was in the mid-thought demolishing stage. But in terms of Tao mammoths, even late thought demolishing cultivators might not necessarily be able to defeat him. His initial thought was to tempt Ning Fan into a duel with his Tao elephant. Then he would kill Ning Fan easily by relying on the strength of his Tao elephant. He didn't expect that the Taoist elephant that he was so proud of would be defeated by the external cultivator in front of him. What a shame! He had actually lost to an external cultivator in his area of expertise. Swallow again. It was unknown what kind of secret technique the old monk used, but it actually strengthened the chi of the gigantic serpent. Once again, it opened its mouth to devour Ning Fan. However, the eyes of the giant serpent were obviously filled with fear towards Ning Fan. During that brief exchange of blows, it could sense how terrifying Ning Fan's Tao elephant was with its Tao elephant body. However, its master seemed to have not realized this. I held back the first time out of respect for 100 Flowers Peak. For the second time, I will still hold back. However, if you are still as stubborn as before, I won't hold back anymore. Ning Fan did not summon his complete Tao elephant. Instead, black light flashed around his body. It was as if there was boundless darkness around him. He directly rammed the giant serpent forward, sending it flying away. At the same time, he also pulled it backwards, forcefully tearing off a piece of illusory flesh from the serpent. The old monk let out a muffled groan and coughed out a mouthful of blood. His expression was filled with disbelief. Due to the damage to his Tao elephant, he actually suffered quite a serious injury. His cultivation base had also fallen a little. However, he was extremely lucky that his cultivation base did not fall to the mid-thought-shattering realm. The long-bearded old monk had to admit that Yi Futian's Taoist image was very strong. Yi Futian had indeed shown mercy, and he had to admit it as well. Otherwise, his Taoist image would have been damaged even more, and it might even have caused his cultivation level to drop. But now, his cultivation level had not dropped. This was the fact that Yi Futian had shown mercy. However, no matter what, Ning Fan had torn off a piece of his Tao elephant's flesh. He could not accept this. Ning Fan was just an external cultivator, but his tone was incomparably arrogant. As a proud cultivator of the 100 Flowers Peak, he also could not tolerate this. Held back? Did he need an external cultivator to hold back? An external cultivator is just an ant. Being held back by an external cultivator is a disgrace. I must kill him to avenge my humiliation. Tao devouring technique. The old monk performed a hand seal with all 10 of his fingers and activated all of his secret techniques. The eyes of the giant serpent Tao elephant that was initially afraid of Ning Fan suddenly turned blood red. Ferocious light shone from them as if it had lost its rationality. There was no longer a trace of fear on its face. It supported its injured body and opened its mouth to devour Ning Fan for the 3rd time. Immediately, the surrounding people gasped. Obviously, they recognized the Tao devouring technique. The Tao devouring technique was an extremely dangerous forbidden technique among the thought-shattering realm cultivators. It could repair one's own Tao elephant by devouring the opponent's Tao elephant. It could even increase the power of one's own Tao elephant. Many cultivators of the devil path love to hunt others' Tao elephants and devour them to improve their own Tao elephants rapidly. However, could a Tao elephant be devoured casually? The Tao elephant was the materialization of a cultivator's Tao. Devouring the Tao elephant of others would mean devouring their Tao. To one's own Tao, the Tao of others would be impurities. Even though this Tao devouring technique could quickly improve one's Tao elephant, it had a huge side effect, which was making one's Tao impure. It would damage one's Tao foundation and affect one's future cultivation prospects. Even cultivators of the devil path would have to think twice before using the Tao devouring technique and be mentally prepared to bear the side effects of this technique. At this moment, the old monk only wanted to devour Ning Fan's Tao elephant to repair his own Tao elephant. He no longer cared about the impurities in his Tao elephant, let alone defeating Ning Fan in terms of Tao elephant. It was undeniable that Ning Fan's Tao elephant was extremely powerful. If he could devour it, it would be enough to completely repair his Tao elephant. Moreover, there might be other benefits as well. The old monk's heart was filled with greed. He was sure that Ning Fan's Tao elephant must have a higher grade which was beyond the 64th grade of the Earth grade. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Ning Fan to defeat him with just a single blow. If he could devour the opponent's high-grade Tao elephant, it would not be a problem even if his own Tao had some impurities because of it. He could spend some effort to remove those impurities. However, the chances of devouring a high-grade Tao elephant were definitely not many. This was an opportunity. The old monk did not plan to let Ning Fan go. He was also sure that Ning Fan would not use too much force against him because they were in the territory of the 100 Flowers Mountain. Ning Fan gently closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he revealed a cold smile. It was a smile that was filled with devilish intent. It gave people a feeling of coldness that made them shudder in fear. He had already given enough face to the 100 Flowers Mountain. If the other party continues to be stubborn, he naturally would not give in. His unyielding character had been fixed since the beginning of his cultivation. If he goes crazy, he would throw away all of his worries and considerations. Absorb. Black light shone around Ning Fan's body. As he made a grabbing motion with his 5 fingers, the black light immediately condensed into a black hand of light that was comparable to the size of a giant snake. It sucked the giant snake into the hand. He doesn't even dare to show his Tao elephant in its complete form. This person really has a lot of scruples. He doesn't dare to display his full strength. The old monk looked down on Ning Fan even more. He wanted to make the giant snake break free from the hand and devour Ning Fan's Tao elephant. However, after trying for a while, the old monk was shocked to find that his minor accomplishment Tao elephant giant snake could not break free from Ning Fan's hand. Ning Fan did not even show his complete Tao elephant. How could he easily restrain his Tao elephant? This is impossible. A creepy feeling suddenly rose in the old monk's heart. He came to a sudden realization and broke out in cold sweat. Ning Fan did not show his complete Tao elephant because of scruples. It was because there was no need for him to do so. Ning Fan's Tao elephant was already so strong that it could completely suppress his Tao elephant with just a small part of it. This person's Tao elephant was unimaginably strong. Fighting against his Tao elephant was a mistake. A huge mistake. I won't show mercy for the 3rd time. Ning Fan smiled coldly. He clenched his 5 fingers and the huge hand made of black light also exerted a great force, directly crushing the giant snake. He destroyed the old monk's Tao elephant with ease. A miserable shriek of disbelief was heard. The old monk let out a miserable cry. Suddenly, blood flowed out from his 7 apertures and he fell to the ground dead. The bloody flames of his baleful chi dyed the vast sky red. Exclamations could be heard everywhere. The strength of the old monk's Tao elephant was well known in the entire 100 Flowers Peak. In the entire 100 Flowers Peak, other than the 100 Flowers Emperor, there were less than 5 people who had the ability to destroy his Tao elephant with a single blow. This external cultivator's Tao elephant was probably even stronger than ordinary immortal venerables. What exactly is this external cultivator's cultivation base? Moreover, this person actually dared to kill people in the 100 Flowers Peak as an external cultivator. Isn't he afraid that this matter will not end peacefully? Mania. Audacious to the extreme. If that 100 Flowers Emperor is really Zhang Yu's friend, she would certainly be able to see through the old monk's vicious intentions. This person is the one who is at fault. Besides, I have shown mercy twice and given enough face to the 100 Flowers Peak. If the 100 Flowers Emperor is sensible, she will certainly not pursue this matter. If she is not sensible, why do I need to reason with these cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak? Ning Fan's expression was cold. He took away the old monk's storage pouch and pulled Duo Lan up the mountain. His movements were as fast as a ghost. In just a few steps, he had completely shaken off the cultivators in the area and disappeared from sight. Even though he could not ignore the restrictive power of the middle state, his speed was still much faster than ordinary cultivators with his earth-piercing golden light ability. Take him down. How dare he commit murder in my 100 Flowers Peak? We can't let this person go. The group of cultivators immediately chased after him up the mountain. However, how could they catch up with Ning Fan, who was running at full speed? On the mountain path, a man and a woman were running towards the peak at full speed. Of course, they were Ning Fan and Duo Lan. Duo Lan smiled bitterly. Senior Ning is indeed a lawless person. He actually dares to create trouble in the 100 Flowers Peak. It was rare that she did not feel any fear or disgust towards Ning Fan's act of killing people. Instead, she felt a hint of warmth. Ning Fan had gotten into a conflict with the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak because of her. I'm sorry. Duo Lan has still caused trouble for Senior. In this case, I'm afraid Senior's purpose of coming to the 100 Flowers Peak will not be able to be achieved. Duo Lan felt extremely apologetic and happy at the same time. At the same time, she was worried about Ning Fan. She could not tell what kind of feeling she was having. Her previous decision to distance herself from Ning Fan had already been thrown to the back of her mind. In her mind, it was as if there was only the scene of her being held by Ning Fan and dashing on the mountain path. I'm being held by Senior again. It's just a matter of convenience. I won't let my people be bullied by others. This is my principle. You don't have to mind this matter and you don't have to be grateful for it. Ning Fan's tone was still cold. However, Duo Lan felt extremely sweet when she heard it. She secretly giggled to herself. Ning Fan felt helpless. Is this woman stupid? Didn't I give her some advice before? Why did I still walk on this wrong path and have a good impression of my enemy? However, Duo Lan's worry was not without reason. In the 100 Flowers Peak, there was probably news about the 9 Raccoon sacrificial vessel. The reason why Zhang Yu came to save the 100 Flowers Emperor was because of this. In other words, the whereabouts of the 9 Raccoon sacrificial vessel was probably in the hands of the 100 Flowers Emperor. After offending the 100 Flowers Peak, it would be difficult to get the whereabouts of the sacrificial vessel from the 100 Flowers Emperor. However, this was not a big deal. If the righteous path could not get the news about the sacrificial vessel, he would use the devil path to snatch it by force. After all, he had the Golden Flame ancestral token with him. If it was not because of that, he would not have the confidence to run amok in this place. The Golden Flame ancestral token could kill a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. I heard that the 100 Flowers Emperor was a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. Moreover, she was severely injured and on the verge of death. Against such an immortal emperor, the Golden Flame ancestral token should be able to kill her in a single strike. Of course, if the 100 Flowers Emperor was really Zhang Yu's old friend, Ning Fan would not go overboard even if he had to shed all pretense of cordiality with the 100 Flowers Peak. He would always leave some leeway for the 100 Flowers Emperor. He only needed to use the Golden Flame ancestral token to intimidate the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak. There was no need for him to really kill the 100 Flowers Emperor. Let's go to the peak of the 100 Flowers Peak first and see the 100 Flowers Emperor's attitude. Zhang Yu and Ouyangmon are there. They are very close to me. The black luck on the peak is Old Wu. As expected, they are all here. Fellow Taoist, you killed someone in my 100 Flowers Peak. Even if that long-bearded Zen master was in the wrong, you don't have to be so ruthless. Fellow Taoist, you really don't put my 100 Flowers Peak in your eyes. A cold voice suddenly came from the front. Ning Fan's heart was alerted. He stopped moving and took a few steps backward to avoid the attack, causing the cold light that suddenly appeared in front of him to miss its target. Your speed isn't slow. Unfortunately, fellow Taoist cultivation base is limited. If you fight me head-on, how confident are you to survive? An old monk with red eyebrows who was holding a flying sword slowly appeared. His eyes were filled with a hint of surprise, as if he was surprised by Ning Fan's speed. First Tribulation Immortal Venerable. Ning Fan's expression turned slightly solemn. He could kill a First Tribulation Immortal Venerable when he was at his peak. However, he was not at his peak now. Thus, he was naturally afraid of this Immortal Venerable expert. I am the Immortal Venerable of the 6th Secondary Peak. My Dharma name is Ming Feng. Since you can dodge my sword attack, I won't bully you with my cultivation base. After all, it was the long-bearded man who was in the wrong first. This sword attack is enough to repay his karma. However, you killed someone in my 100 Flowers Peak and damaged the reputation of my sect. I can't just sit by and do nothing about it. Fellow Taoist, you seem to be very proud of your Tao image. Just nice, I will use my Tao image to exchange some pointers with you. It was also a battle between Tao images, but this immortal venerable Ming Feng's motive was not to severely injure Ning Fan. Instead, he wanted to give Ning Fan a chance to have a fair fight with him. Ning Fan had the strength of an immortal venerable. His cultivation base was limited, but his Tao image was not. Venerable Ming Feng did not use his cultivation base to bully Ning Fan. Instead, he chose to fight with a Tao image of an immortal venerable who was at the same level as him. This was already considered as giving Ning Fan a fair fight. If he dies in a fair fight, Ning Fan would probably die without any regrets. That was Venerable Ming Feng's thought. Ning Fan's expression softened. This person's intention was not as vicious as the long-bearded old monk. Thus, he did not plan to kill him. However, it was a mistake for this person to try and stop him with his Tao image. The strength of his Tao image was definitely not something that Venerable Ming Feng could imagine. As for how strong it was, Ning Fan had never really tried it before. After all, he rarely encountered a battle between Tao images. Today, he might as well test the limits of his Tao image. My Tao image is called Ancient Buddha Feeding Eagle. It's a powerful Tao image at the 53rd rank of the Earth rank. It has the power of Buddha Dharma as well as the power of curse techniques. You might be able to deal with it. Ming Feng seemed to be a straightforward person. He actually told Ning Fan about the abilities of his Tao image, unwilling to take advantage of Ning Fan. His behavior also showed Ming Feng's arrogance. He was different from the long-bearded old monk. The latter was just a thought-breaking realm cultivator, and his Tao image was only at the minor completion realm. As for him, he was a grand completion realm Tao image. When a grand completion realm Tao image is achieved, one could form a Tao technique. Not every immortal venerable in the ancient times could cultivate to the grand completion realm Tao image. Ming Feng did not think that Ning Fan was a grand completion realm Tao image cultivator. Even so, he did not think that the grade of Ning Fan's Tao image could be higher than his 53rd rank of the Earth rank. After all, he still had some racial pride in his bones. He still looked down on external cultivators. As Ming Feng displayed his Tao image, a golden Buddha light suddenly shot up into the sky. Then, the image of a seated Buddha gradually appeared within the Buddha light. Chapter 10:17. It was a giant Buddha sitting on a lotus throne. Below the lotus was a golden and jade-green glazed platform. The carvings of 800 arhats were carved on the platform. Other than sitting on the platform, there was nothing else in the entire Tao image. According to venerated Ming Feng, his Tao image was called the Ancient Buddha Feeding the Eagle. He must have used the story of the Buddha sect cutting off their flesh to feed the eagle. However, the Tao image still did not have the image of an eagle nor the ancient Buddha cutting off its flesh. It really did not match its name. No, it was not that it did not match. Ning Fan thought for a while and understood. Perhaps this venerated Ming Feng was too arrogant and careless. He did not display the complete Tao image but only a small part of it. Was he imitating the way he held back against the long-bearded old monk? Ning Fan was a little disapproving. His Tao image was at the heaven grade. This grade almost only existed in the legends. It was far superior to Ming Feng's earth grade, which was 53 grades. Even if this venerated Ming Feng fully displays his Tao image, he might not be a match for him. Since he was so careless, he would definitely lose. I only need to use 30% of my Tao image's power to deal with you. You should know. Venerated immortal Ming Feng had a calm expression on his face. He was also very talkative. Ning Fan, on the other hand, did not intend to talk nonsense with him. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Ning Fan directly activated his Tao elephant. Black light immediately soared into the sky from his body and swept across the surroundings. That black light was part of the light of his Tao image. It carried a suffocating pressure and monstrous devil chi. When the devil might swept across, it actually caused the space in this place to distort. This devil might of the Tao image came too suddenly, catching venerated Ming Feng off guard. He was directly forced to take a few steps back. The words that he wanted to say were cut short and his expression changed drastically. As for his 30% Tao image, it kept twisting under the pressure of Ning Fan's devil might. Cracks gradually appeared on it as if it could not withstand the devil might of Ning Fan's Tao image at all. A Buddha is no match for a devil. How is this possible? Venerated Ming Feng sucked in a breath of cold air. Even though he only used 30% of his Tao image's power, it was his first time seeing his Tao image being suppressed like this in his life. Moreover, the other party was the Tao image of the devil path. What was more terrifying was that Ning Fan did not even manifest his Tao image. He only released the devil might of his Tao image, and it was already enough to force him to take a few steps back. Moreover, his Tao image cracked. This simply defied common sense. Use your full strength. Otherwise, you will die in this battle of Tao elephants. Ning Fan said indifferently. He stood there amidst the black light, which was part of the light from his demonified night Tao mammoth. It made him even more devilish, and his aura was unprecedentedly sharp and terrifying. Venerated immortal Ming Feng seemed to be provoked by Ning Fan's words. His expression was filled with anger and embarrassment. You sure have a big tone. You just have a slightly stronger Tao elephant pressure. You must know that the Battle of Elephants is not just a competition of Tao elephant pressure, there are many other contests. Fine, since you insist on witnessing my 100% Taoist elephant power, I'll give you this chance. Form again. Ming Feng Immortal Venerable suddenly put his palms together. A picture of an eagle chasing a dove appeared in the Tao image. The benevolent expression on the ancient Buddha's face and the Buddha nature contained within it instantly increased by several times. This was his complete Tao image. It was impossible for a Buddha to be defeated by a demon. It should be because his power was not complete that the opponent's devil might could take advantage of him. At this moment he had already exerted all of his Tao elephant power. The Buddha might of the Tao elephant around him increased by several times. Even though it was still not as strong as Ning Fan's Black Devil Might, it was already able to withstand Ning Fan's Devil Might with great difficulty. He could not help but regain some of his confidence. When the devil grows stronger, the Tao grows 10 times stronger. Just watch how I subdue the devil. There was a Buddhist scripture that said that a long time before the calamity, a king of the Buddhist lands did not hesitate to cut off his own flesh to feed the eagle in exchange for the dove's life in order to save a dove that was being chased by an eagle. It was a great mercy to protect all living beings. Be it the eagle or the dove, they were all living beings that the king wanted to protect. There was no distinction between them. Venerated immortal Ming Feng's Tao elephant had already reached the grand accomplishment realm. The Tao technique that he comprehended was related to the act of cutting off his own flesh. Besides, it also contained the mysteries of curse techniques which were quite powerful. However, at this moment he was not competing with Ning Fan in terms of Tao technique but the strength of his Tao elephant. In that case, he naturally did not plan to use any Tao technique. Instead, he gathered the Buddha light produced by his 100% completed Tao elephant and condensed it into a Buddha light palm imprint that was as tall as a human. As soon as this palm imprint appeared, it seemed to be able to resonate with all the laws of all living beings. It actually kept absorbing the natural Tao power of the surrounding plants and rocks, forming ripples of Tao power in midair. As soon as the ripples spread, the main peak of the 100 Flowers Peak began to tremble. At the moment the momentum of the ripples rose to its peak, Ming Feng pushed with all his might. That palm imprint whizzed towards Ning Fan and approached him in an instant. It even gave Ning Fan an illusion that he was not facing Ming Feng's Tao elephant alone but the condensation of the Tao of all living beings in the territory of the 100 Flowers Peak. Its momentum was boundless and the weather changed. I have already given you a fair fight. If you die because of this, you can die in peace. After that, I will chant sutras for you to send you to the afterlife. After venerated immortal Ming Feng gave Ning Fan a push, he put his palms together and chanted Amitabha. Then he slowly closed his eyes as if he was unwilling to see the scene of Ning Fan's Tao collapsing and dying. This was already the full power of his Tao image, and he even used Buddhist divine abilities to gather the Tao of all living beings in this place and merge it within. In terms of cultivation, Ming Feng was only ranked 6th amongst the 7 auxiliary peaks of 100 Flowers Peak, but in terms of the strength of Tao images, he could be ranked in the top 3. At this moment, he had already exerted his full strength. It should be enough for him to kill Ning Fan. However, in the next moment, immortal venerable Ming Feng opened his eyes in horror. Before he could see clearly what happened, a demonic palm that was several times fiercer than his Buddha palm suddenly blasted over. Surprisingly, it was Ning Fan who had imitated him by condensing the power of his Tao elephant. In terms of power, this demonic palm was several times stronger than Ming Feng's Buddha palm. With just one strike, it shattered Ming Feng's Buddha palm. It was almost unstoppable. In the next moment, the demonic palm slammed into Ming Feng's giant Buddha image. It was as if it wanted to use its own demonic path to fight against Ming Feng and the power of all living beings that Ming Feng had gathered. Bang! 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 The images of an eagle, a white dove, a lotus, and a giant Buddha were instantly shattered by this demonic palm. Immortal Venerable Ming Feng felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow. Fresh blood spurted out from his mouth and he kept retreating. Every time he took a step back, his qi would weaken significantly. After taking 6 steps back, he could no longer support himself. He half knelt on the mountain path and found it difficult to even stand up straight. The surroundings were filled with broken Buddhist lights, and the deafening rumbles caused by the collision of the Taoist images were like thunder. The area within a few hundred steps of the mountain path was filled with devil qi. In this battle, Ning Fan's devil might of his Tao image not only defeated Ming Feng's Tao image, but also forcefully changed the atmosphere of Buddhism in this place, turning this small pure land of Buddhism into an ancient devil cave. If there is no powerful cultivator who dispels the devil qi in this place, perhaps the area within 100 steps of the mountain path would still be filled with devil qi even after tens of thousands of years. I've lost. I'm not a match for him at all. A strong sense of defeat filled Ming Feng's heart. A complete defeat. The power of the Tao images of the two of them were not on the same level at all. If it was a head-on confrontation, even if Ning Fan was at his peak, he would not have been defeated so helplessly. However, this was a duel between Tao images. It was different from a normal duel. The huge gap between the two of them in terms of Tao images meant that the result of this duel would only be a one-sided massacre. His opponent's Tao elephant was terrifyingly powerful. The other party didn't even use his full strength. Doran's red lips parted slightly. She was so shocked that she couldn't speak. If she was not mistaken, Ning Fan had only used a portion of his Tao elephant's power to defeat venerated immortal Kuei Ming in a single strike. It was not surprising for him to defeat the long-bearded old monk with thought-shattering cultivation with a portion of the Tao elephant's power, but defeating an immortal venerable of the same level was a little shocking. Among the immortal venerables, the difference between Tao images was usually not too huge. This kind of one-sided defeat was extremely rare. Just how strong was Senior Ning's Tao image? How much did he surpass Ming Feng Immortal Venerable? In this battle, how much strength did Senior Ning use? Was it 90%? Was it 70%? Was it even less? It's 10%, Ning Fan murmured in his heart, but he didn't say anything on his face. He had seen through the doubts in Doran's mind using the mind-reading technique. However, since Doran was tactful and did not ask about it, he also did not plan to explain it to her. Actually, Ning Fan was also a little shocked by Ming Feng's instant defeat. He had never tested the limits of his Tao image. It was only after today's duel that he fully realized how huge the difference between his Tao images and an ordinary person's was. Once his Tao image was completed, it was enough to defeat all of venerated immortal Kuei Ming's Tao images. Besides, he actually had 2 Tao images. One was the demonized Dark Knight while the other was the Tao image of the Big Dipper. In this duel, he actually only used the demonized Dark Knight. Under normal circumstances, even if there was a difference between the Tao images of the immortal venerables of the past 10,000 years, it would not be too huge. In other words, among the first great immortal venerables, there were probably only a handful of them who could defeat 10% of his Tao image. If he uses his full strength, perhaps even an immortal king would be defeated in a duel with his Tao image. However, it was unknown whether his Tao image would still be able to gain the upper hand against an immortal emperor. Why didn't you kill me? Ming Feng gritted his teeth and asked. His eyes that were staring at Ning Fan were filled with struggle. He was obviously defeated, but his Tao did not collapse and die. It was the other party who showed him mercy. Although his Tao image seemed to have completely collapsed, there was actually still a chance for him to survive. Otherwise, he would certainly die in this duel. He was a dignified and humble immortal venerables, but he was actually shown mercy by an external cultivator. You didn't use your cultivation base to bully me, so I will spare your life. That's all. However, if you try to stop me again, I won't show mercy for the second time. Ning Fan indifferently glanced at Ming Feng, who was on the verge of death. Then, he withdrew his gaze and held Duo Lan's hand again. Both of them dashed on the mountain path, heading straight to the peak of the mountain. Duo Lan's ears naturally turned hot again. As for Ming Feng, he looked at Ning Fan's back that was rushing straight to the peak of the mountain with a bitter expression. Even if he wanted to chase after Ning Fan, he did not have the strength to stand up. His injuries were too severe. Besides, he still owed Ning Fan a favor of sparing his life. Besides, the 100 Flowers Emperor's intention was also very worth pondering. It's impossible that His Excellency doesn't know what happened here. With His Excellency's cold-blooded and bloodthirsty personality, if anyone dares to commit murder in my 100 Flowers territory, he would always punish them without asking for a reason. Even if His Excellency is severely injured now, it shouldn't be difficult for him to kill an immortal venerables with limited cultivation base. However, he still hasn't done anything. Could it be that His Excellency doesn't blame this person for committing murder? Is it because this external cultivator is related to His Excellency? After all, a few days ago, there seemed to be a few external cultivators who came to the 100 Flowers Peak and received His Excellency's courtesy. Could it be that this person is actually on the same side as those people? Or perhaps His Excellency just took a fancy to this person's handsome appearance and had the thought of forgiving him? Or could it be that there are other unknown reasons? Ming Feng sat cross-legged on the mountain path. While consuming pills to heal his injuries, his mind was racing. In fact, he already had these thoughts when he stopped Ning Fan in the beginning. That was why he was hesitant and decided to give Ning Fan a fair fight. It was possible that he was also trying to test Ning Fan. Now, it seemed like he made the right bet. When his Tao image collapsed and his life was on the line, His Excellency did not even take action. If it wasn't for Ning Fan showing mercy, he would have already died. His Excellency is indeed a cold-blooded person. Could it be that the lives of the eternal disciples are actually not as important as the external cultivators in front of her? Otherwise, why didn't she take action? His Excellency has changed. She has already changed beyond recognition. In a daze, Ming Feng seemed to see the graceful figure in the seven-colored light walking towards him step by step. He could not see her face clearly, but her voice was exceptionally soft and pleasant like honey. I am the immortal Emperor of the 100 Flowers Peak. Are you willing to follow me? I have the wish to deliver all living beings from suffering. Are you willing to follow me? I wish to save all the suffering in this world. Are you willing to follow me? As long as I am alive, I will never let anyone die in front of me. Are you willing to follow me? Hence, he joined the 100 Flowers Peak together with countless poor children. He could not remember how many years had passed since he started cultivating until now. I will never let anyone die in front of me. I will never let anyone die in front of me. Knowingly, Ming Feng's cloudy eyes were filled with tears. He naturally did not care about all of this. At this moment, he was already not far away from the peak of the mountain. Ning Fan increased his speed to the maximum. Along the way, he encountered tens of patrolling cultivators who tried to stop him from advancing. However, he forced his way through all of them by relying on his speed. Only when he reached the peak of the mountain did he let go of Duolan. As soon as Ning Fan arrived at the peak of the mountain, the cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak who were chasing after him became hesitant. They no longer dared to chase after him as if the peak of the mountain was some kind of supreme forbidden area. The peak of the main mountain is where the 100 Flowers Sovereign's abode is located. Without being summoned, ordinary cultivators of the 100 Flowers Peak wouldn't dare to enter this place. Duolan explained. Looking at the scenery that was still the same as before, she felt a little absent-minded. She recalled the time when her father brought her all the way to the main mountain of the 100 Flowers Peak. Ning Fan's eyes scanned the surroundings. This place was already the end of the mountain path. The surroundings were surrounded by clouds and mist. On the mountain wall in the depths of the clouds and mist, he could vaguely see the illusory mountain gate of the abode. On both sides of the mountain gate, there were clusters of pale orchids. The color of the orchids was very unique, just like the skin of a sickly beauty. The mountain gate faced the cliff. At the top of the cliff, there was a stone tablet that was about 3 zhang tall and 8 qi wide. There were 2 lines of 16 large words engraved on it. When a peanut dies, all living beings will suffer. When a peanut dies, all living beings will be saved. There was a hint of the meaning of saving all living beings from suffering. Judging from the supreme aura force contained in these words, it was most likely carved by the 100 Flowers sovereign. It seemed like this 100 Flowers sovereign was also a Buddha cultivator. In this lowly clan which had a strong Buddhist Dharma atmosphere, it was not strange at all. On the mountain gate, there was an extremely weak fluctuation of restrictions. If one wasn't a Formation Tao Grandmaster, it would be very difficult to see through it. Of course, it could not hide from Ning Fan. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the place. Be it the mountain gate, the plants, the orchids or the grass or the rocks, there were restrictions everywhere. Not only were there a large number of restrictions, but they were also arranged in a complicated and intricate manner. Killing intent was hidden everywhere. If the owner did not allow it, even an ancient immortal venerate would not dare to trespass recklessly. Otherwise, he would face the risk of dying. After all, this place was the mountain gate of a dignified immortal emperor. It was reasonable for trespassers to die. However, when it was placed together with the inscription of saving all living beings from suffering, he could not help but feel a little ridiculous. What happened to saving all living beings from suffering? Do those who trespass the mountain gate deserve to die? Is there no need to save all living beings from suffering? The inscription of this inscription is only what it looks like but not what it actually is. Ning Fan sighed with emotion. To think that the 100 Flowers sovereign was a figure from the same era as Zhongyu. Even until today, her cultivation base was still at the 6th tribulation realm. Perhaps the reason why the 100 Flowers sovereign was unable to attain a higher cultivation base was because of her hypocrisy. She wasn't as merciful as what the inscription said. However, the formation of this mountain gate did have some tricks up its sleeves. It should not be underestimated. Even if Ning Fan had comprehended the secret of the word force, he could not completely see through the operation of the formation in a short period of time. If he wants to completely see through it, it would take him at least a few days to do so. From this, it could be seen that the complexity of the restrictions around the mountain gate was even greater than the formation that Great Emperor Chonghe had set up on the Swaggering Mountain. After all, it did not take Ning Fan much time to break the formation of the Swaggering Mountain that day. This 100 Flowers sovereign might be a hypocritical Buddhist cultivator. However, her attainments in the Tao of formations were definitely not to be underestimated. We certainly can't hide the fact that we trespassed the mountain from the 100 Flowers sovereign. Since she didn't show up directly to kill us, I suppose she won't do it. Perhaps she's more or less worried about my identity as the Saintess? This formation of the mountain gate is extremely dangerous. Even my father had to put in a lot of effort to break it in the past. With Senior's limited cultivation base, I'm afraid that you might lose your life if you trespass the formation. If the 100 Flowers sovereign doesn't summon us, I'm afraid we can only wait here for the mountain gate to open on its own. When she thought about meeting the 100 Flowers sovereign soon, Duo Lan felt a little nervous. Her father had severely injured the 100 Flowers sovereign in the past. There was a grudge between them. However, just as her voice fell, the mountain gate suddenly opened on its own. It surprised her a lot. In her opinion, she and Ning Fan had trespassed the mountain and killed many people. Moreover, she had a grudge against the 100 Flowers sovereign. Even if the 100 Flowers sovereign didn't punish her, she would at least make things difficult for her. If they were lucky, they would only be locked outside the mountain gate for a few days before being summoned again. If they were unlucky, they might even be attacked by the formation outside the mountain gate again. Unexpectedly, the two of them did not encounter much trouble when they arrived at the mountain gate and the mountain gate opened. A few young men with flesh wings walked out from the entrance of the cave. When they saw Ning Fan and Duo Lan standing outside the mountain gate, they were not surprised at all. Instead, they said coldly, "The venerated sovereign has been waiting for a long time. This way, please." They were the few young men who had brought Ning Fan up the mountain and then disappeared on the mountain path. One of them took out a token and struck it with a hand seal. All of a sudden, the killing formation in this place stopped operating. Then, they turned around and went back into the cave. Even though their tone was cold, Ning Fan could still hear some politeness in them. Compared to the attitude at the foot of the mountain, their attitude was actually a little better. However, it was still not much better. At least, Ning Fan did not see any obvious hostility from the faces of these young men with flesh wings. These young men with flesh wings must have received the 100-Flower Emperor's order to bring them into the cave. Their attitude implied the 100-Flower Emperor's attitude. Obviously, the 100-Flower Emperor already knew everything that happened on the mountain path like the back of her hand. She did not seem to blame Ning Fan for trespassing on the mountain. It seems like this 100-Flower Emperor is a sensible person. Of course, it's also possible that she did not want to pursue this matter with me because of Zhang Yu and the others. Suddenly, a mountain breeze blew past. The orchid bushes near the mountain gate actually produced a whimpering sound because of the wind. Sometimes, it sounded like a baby crying and sometimes, it sounded like a young lady crying. It was extremely strange. Ning Fan could not help but take another look at those orchids. Orchids that could cry had yet to turn into spirits. It was his first time seeing an orchid that could cry after so many years of cultivation. In reality, those whimpering sounds were just the listener's imagination. However, in Ning Fan's ears, he seemed to really hear a trace of sorrow that had existed since the ancient times. He actually felt that his heart was touched. Ning Fan realized that his eyes were attracted by those pale white orchids. It was not because he was bewitched by them, nor was it because of their abilities. It was just pure attraction. He could not move his eyes away. Duo Lan, who was originally a little nervous, could not help but feel a little amused. She did not expect that Senior Ning, who had monstrous devil chi, was actually a person who loved flowers. This flower is a unique species of the 100 Flowers Peak. It's called the Carefree Orchid. It's one of the 10 great Buddha flowers of Great Bay. In the Middle State, it has a good reputation of, when the flower blooms, its nature will be revealed. It is said that the first master of the 100 Flowers Peak obtained it during one of his travels. He comprehended it because of this flower. Thus, he was very fond of this flower and transplanted it here. That senior had even displayed this flower in a certain ancient Buddha assembly and publicly praised it. All love meets. Impermanence is hard to come by. Life is filled with fear and one's life is endangered by the morning dew. Love gives birth to worry and love gives birth to fear. If you are separated from your lover, you will have no worries and no fears. Since then, this flower has become famous in the Middle State and even gained the name Carefree. Duo Lan transmitted her voice to Ning Fan and explained, "If you are separated from your lover, you will have no worries and no fears." Ning Fan muttered to himself. He felt that the senior's words contained a deep understanding of the Tao of Buddha. Thus, he could not help but repeat it a few more times. "However, I have heard another secret from my father. He said that the name that senior gave to this flower is not the Carefree Orchid but the Wangfu Orchid. This flower whimpers in the wind because it is missing its husband." Duo Lan actually seemed to be longing for the flower. The Wangfu Orchid? Ning Fan retracted his gaze and followed behind the few youths, stepping into the entrance of the cave dwelling. The layout of the 100 Flowers Emperor's cave was extremely complicated. The terrain would change every 10 breaths. It felt like an illusory formation. If he does not follow the few young men and walks on his own, Ning Fan firmly believed that he would get lost in this place. Ning Fan now had a clearer understanding of the 100 Flowers Emperor's attainments in the Tao of Formations. With just her cultivation base in the Tao of Formations, she is qualified to befriend Zhang Yu, who has a peak cultivation base. The cave was obviously not big and there were not many forks in the road. However, Ning Fan had to walk for a full 2 hours before he arrived at a spacious main hall. On both sides of the main hall, there were more than 10 maids who were wearing light muslin. Each of them had their heads lowered and were waiting for the 100 Flowers Emperor's orders. At the center of the main hall, there was a golden chair that was 1 zhang long. A charming lady was sitting on it. The pink muslin she was wearing could not hide the curves of her body. One could still vaguely see the delicate fullness and bumps on her body. Her face was also covered with a nearly transparent muslin. Below the muslin was her overly sexy and coquettish lips. Just by breathing lightly, it could stimulate the most primitive desire of any man. Conquer. I must conquer this woman. Below the golden chair that the lady was sitting on, there were 3 to 4 young men with fleshy wings kneeling on the ground with greedy eyes. They were licking the lady's fingers, ankles, and bare feet in a frenzy. The scene was so disgusting that it made Duo Lan immediately avert her gaze. Her face turned slightly red and she did not dare to look at them directly. As for the few young men who were leading the way, they also joined in the actions of the lady in robes as soon as they returned to this place. The enchanting lady who was sitting on the ground was naturally the owner of this place, the 100 Flowers Emperor. She did not use her luck to conceal her appearance. Instead, she willfully exposed her body. She did not reject the view of men. Incense was lit in the main hall. The incense could also stimulate one's desires. Even Duo Lan found it hard to resist this kind of fragrance. However, it was absolutely nothing to Ning Fan. Chu Lai, Duo Lan. I haven't seen you for so many years. I can't believe you're still alive. The 100 Flowers Emperor raised her blurry eyes and glanced at Duo Lan. Her tone was rather sarcastic. What she was sarcastic about was naturally Duo Lan, who was struggling to survive in this world. She is just an orphan girl and she is still alive. This holy maiden Chu Lai is really lucky. The 100 Flowers Emperor's face was flushed. Obviously, she was not completely oblivious to the lustful behavior of the young men beside her. However, the redness could not conceal the trace of paleness that was hidden deep within her. Her internal injuries were very serious. They were so serious that she could only display 10 to 20% of her strength. Even so, she still had the imposing aura of an emperor. She shifted her gaze away from Duo Lan and looked straight at Ning Fan while licking her red lips. He's not a bad man. Ning Fan's appearance suited her taste very well. She liked this kind of soft, delicate, fair and clean man. She liked it when they would submit to her feet and serve her like a dog. Unfortunately, this person was the companion of immortal concubine Zhang Yu. She could not touch him. Otherwise, she would not mind having sex with Ning Fan. After that, she would make Ning Fan's physical body into one of her collection of corpse devils forever. Ning Fan instinctively felt a little disgusted. With his standpoint as a dual cultivator, he certainly did not have the right to look down on the 100 Flowers Emperor's unrestrained behavior. However, he also disliked being stared at by the 100 Flowers Emperor as if she was looking at her prey. He did not expect that Duo Lan's inauspicious words would really come true. This 100 Flowers Emperor actually had lustful thoughts towards him. However, it seemed like this 100 Flowers Emperor was still restraining herself. Is it really because of Zhang Yu? May I know your surname? The 100 Flowers Emperor giggled and asked. My name is Ning Fan. So it's Ning Fan. Why did you come to my 100 Flowers Peak? Are you here to look for Sister Zhang Yu? The 100 Flowers Emperor's gaze moved downwards and stopped at Ning Fan's lower body. Then she made a sucking gesture. It's a blatant tease. Ning Fan felt even more disgusted, but he still said calmly. That's right. I came here to look for them. May I know where Zhang Yu and the others are? They are busy helping me nourish my pills. They should still be busy at this hour. I'm afraid they will only be done after another 4 hours. If you want to see them, you can only wait. Before that, how about we talk about something else? The 100 Flowers Emperor smiled seductively. I wonder what you want to talk about, venerated sovereign? Of course, I want to talk about the murder you committed in my 100 Flowers territory. The 100 Flowers Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed with killing intent. That bone-chilling killing intent instantly made Duo Lan break out in cold sweat. It was so heavy that she felt like she was suffocating. Of course, it did not scare Ning Fan. She was a great sovereign who had lived since ancient times until today. She had gone through a few life-and-death situations. Her baleful chi was no small matter. She was a treacherous and merciless great sovereign. Ning Fan must be extremely careful when dealing with this person. All of a sudden, Ning Fan had many thoughts in his mind. However, at the next moment, the killing intent in the 100 Flowers Emperor's eyes disappeared. She was still bewitching and charming. She giggled at Ning Fan and said, "Don't be afraid, Ning Fan. I won't mind killing a mere bearded man. Who wants to kill you? I can forget about this matter, but the woman beside you and I still have some old scores to settle. I will give her some punishment later. I hope you won't stop me. Otherwise, no matter how soft-hearted I am towards you, I will still have the intention to kill you." Gentler, gentler. That's right here. Tongue in. Come in with your tongue. Because it was too comfortable, the 100 Flowers Emperor let out a soft moan and closed her eyes in enjoyment. After a while, she weakly gave an order. "Yun Lang, Shi Lang, you two don't need to serve me anymore. Go and strip Chu Lai's Duo Lan's clothes for me. I can't kill her. You two humiliate her on my behalf and use the same skill you used to serve me on her." "Yes." Two young men with flesh wings immediately stood up and answered in a lifeless tone. Duo Lan's face turned pale. She was sure that her life would not be in danger after entering the 100 Flowers Peak. However, she did not expect that the 100 Flowers Emperor would use such a method to profane her innocence. She asked these young corpse devils to her, "I am the holy maiden of Chu Lai. If you ruin my innocence, Chu Lai will definitely punish you." Duo Lan gnashed her teeth and said angrily, "Do you think this generation's Chu Lai Emperor will stand up for you? As long as I don't harm your life, the Holy Mountain will not pursue this matter. Don't forget what kind of massacre your father had caused in my 100 Flowers Peak and what kind of injuries he had left on my body." The 100 Flowers Emperor waved the few young men with flesh wings away and stood up. With a cold expression, he took off his clothes in front of everyone. On his almost perfect, there was an extremely ugly scar that went all the way to his back and had yet to heal. "This was cut by your father's sword. Do you still remember? I didn't harm your life, but it doesn't mean that I don't intend to repay this enmity. Since you sent yourself to my 100 Flowers Peak, don't blame me for taking revenge. If the Holy Mountain asks, I will only say that you did this willingly. How will you defend yourself?" There was no way to refute. Duo Lan's face turned pale. She entered the 100 Flowers Peak willingly and no one forced her. If something happened to her here, she could only blame herself for being careless. As long as the 100 Flowers Emperor did not harm her life, this matter would not be considered a big deal. After all, although a holy maiden's chastity was important, as a holy maiden, she would be molested by others. Otherwise, why would she soak in the mother pool? There were many holy maidens who were in decline who were treated as goods and were used by the supreme beings of the Holy Mountain to improve their cultivation. If her innocence was destroyed here, even if she returned to the Holy Mountain, she would be treated as a plaything and would be destroyed and plucked. She did not want to fall into that kind of fate. She would rather die. If she threatens to kill herself, the 100 Flowers Emperor might have some scruples. After all, if she dies, the 100 Flowers Emperor would also have to bear the consequences even if this matter becomes a big deal. Duo Lan gritted her teeth slightly and made up her mind. Just when she was about to resist, Ning Fan moved his body slightly to the side and stood in front of her. As soon as his devil might dispersed, the two young men who were approaching Duo Lan were forced to retreat with a muffled groan. They could no longer take another step forward. "Put away your suicidal thoughts. I'm here." Ning Fan had never believed that he disliked this woman in front of him. The 100 Flowers Emperor. What a 100 Flowers Emperor. Bullying a junior with the status of an immortal emperor and bullying an orphan girl with the power of the 100 flowers. Even if the 100 Flowers Emperor of the previous Chu Lai Emperor had the right to massacre them, he should not use such a method to deal with Duo Lan. It was too shameful. If the 100 Flowers Emperor's method of revenge was to kill Duo Lan at all costs instead of destroying her chastity, Ning Fan would praise the 100 Flowers Emperor for his courage. Of course, he would not just sit and watch Duo Lan die. He would still take action. If he wants to take revenge, he should do it cleanly. He should not play any dirty tricks as it would only put him in a disadvantageous position. The grudge between the 100 Flowers Emperor and Chu Lai Emperor, whether it was right or wrong, Ning Fan did not intend to get involved. He did not care who was right or wrong. Duo Lan entered the Hundred Flowers territory for him. Thus, he must not let her die because of him. That was his principle. I seem to have said that if you stop me from doing something, I won't be lenient anymore. The Hundred Flowers Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed with killing intent. Currently, she was severely injured and could not use her magic power recklessly. However, if it's a duel between Tao images, she would not need to use her magic power. Even though there were risks in a duel between Tao images, why would the Hundred Flowers Emperor be afraid of such a method when there was an absolute disparity in strength? Would she lose in a duel between Tao images who were below the Immortal Emperor realm? Tao images would not weaken because of injuries. None of the other 4 emperors of the Middle Province could match her Tao image, let alone Ning Fan. Putting aside the fact that it was impossible for the grade of his Tao elephant and his cultivation base to be higher than hers, just the fact that his Immortal Emperor realm Tao elephant had been enhanced by his Emperor Qi alone made it impossible for any cultivator below the Immortal Emperor realm to defeat him. No immortal venerables or immortal kings dared to accept a battle between immortal emperors. That was equivalent to seeking their own death, and there was no chance of victory. If Ning Fan was an immortal emperor, the Hundred Flower Emperor might still have some scruples and would not choose to use this method. However, Ning Fan was not an immortal emperor. Of course, she would not really kill Ning Fan. She had yet to finish making use of Zhang Yu and the others. She still needed their help to heal her injuries. If she wants to regain her strength, a pill refinement master with a 5-colored medicine soul was indispensable. She must never offend him. However, a necessary lesson had to be taught. Otherwise, how could she maintain her dignity as an immortal emperor? If you can defeat me in the Battle of Daos, then the grudge between my Hundred Flowers Peak and Chu Lai Duolon will be written off. Do you dare? If you don't dare, then don't stop me from taking revenge. The Hundred Flowers Sovereign looked at Ning Fan with a mocking expression. She did not believe that Ning Fan would dare to accept the challenge. Unless Ning Fan was a fool. No. The Tao elephant of an immortal emperor is incomparable to an immortal venerable or immortal king. In the history of my country, no one below the Immortal Emperor realm could defeat an immortal emperor in the Tao elephant realm. Don't accept her challenge. Dulan was afraid. She was not afraid of the possibility of her death. After all, she had been facing schemes and death day and night for all these years. She had long become numb to her own safety. However, Ning Fan was different. Senior Ning was her enemy. He was a madman who held her hostage. He was also Chu Lai's enemy. However, she just could not watch Ning Fan throw away his life without doing anything. I can't do it. I can't do it. If Ning Fan accepts the challenge, he would certainly die. This Hundred Flowers Sovereign might spare her life because of her identity as a saintess. However, she definitely would not have any scruples against an external cultivator like Ning Fan. She was afraid that Ning Fan would die. The more she got to know Ning Fan, the more she knew that he was not a cowardly person. On the contrary, Ning Fan was definitely a madman who dared to kill anyone in a fit of anger. At this moment, she could feel Ning Fan's anger that was hidden deep under the layer of ice. Ning Fan stared straight into the Hundred Flowers Sovereign's eyes without any hesitation. There was no lust or anger in his eyes. His expression was still calm, but it gave people a heavy sense of oppression. Her father was once like that. The only time in his life when he was angry was in such a manner. There was no sign of sadness or anger, but he did something crazy that shocked the holy mountain. He washed the Hundred Flowers Peak with blood, slaughtered the Blood River, set the holy mountain on fire, slaughtered the Triflame Lightning, and pointed his sword at the Radiance Buddha. No one would have thought that the former Chu Lai, who had always been devoted to Buddhism, would be so terrifying and crazy when he gets angry. She's mine, Ning Fan said calmly. So, are you going to fight or not? The Hundred Flowers Sovereign said disdainfully. If you don't regret it, there's no harm in fighting. His tone was still as calm as before, but it directly triggered the Hundred Flowers Sovereign's anger. Arrogant indeed. How arrogant. If I don't regret it, let's see how a mere immortal venerated external cultivator like you can make me regret it. Someone, Inform the 7 auxiliary peaks and the 49 peaks that an external cultivator wants to fight with me. All cultivators above the true immortal realm who are free must come to the main peak to watch the battle. It had been a long time since she displayed her abilities. Ever since she suffered from severe injuries, the people of the 100 Flowers Peak had wavered. This was a good opportunity for her to let her disciples see that she was still the 100 Flowers sovereign who reigned supreme in the world. She would punish Ning Fan in front of everyone. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.